With over 53,000 fans in attendance at Wembley Stadium, AEW brought All In back to London this afternoon. Swerve Strickland was on the pre-show with Tony Khan signing his new AEW contract. So we don't know how long it's for, but Swerve Strickland is going to be sticking around for a little bit longer. He's going to have a few more years in this company. Now, he walked into Wembley Stadium as the AEW World Heavyweight Champion. He walked out a beaten man because for the first time ever, Bryan Danielson, the American Dragon, is the AEW World Heavyweight Champion. In fact, it's the first gold that Bryan has held now. He's been in this company for 3 years. His first taste of gold in his AEW career. And I was reminded, when this pay-per-view was over, it was 10 years ago that Bryan Danielson stood in the middle of the ring in front of what was more than 60,000 fans, a brand new World Heavyweight Champion. He tapped out Batista in the Yes Lock. And with 60,000 plus people going nuts, me being one of them, and confetti raining down upon him, he stood in the middle of the ring as World Heavyweight Champion at a time in a company where that would have been inconceivable only a couple of years earlier. And it was a great moment. And he got to celebrate in the ring with some friends and family. And here we are tonight at All In a totally different company. And Bryan Danielson, 10 years later, is standing in the middle of the ring in front of almost as many people, with confetti raining down upon him, the brand new World Heavyweight Champion. Only this time he's got his wife, his daughter, and his son. Bree, Buddy, and Birdie, all in the ring with him to celebrate his championship victory. One of the greatest AEW matches of all time, and if you base it on pure emotion alone, it may well be the best. Because this match was about more than just the moves, it was, more than just the holds. It was the storytelling, it was the drama, it was the family element, and them being in the front row, them being a part of this match, being brought into this match. Everything about that main event was outstanding. Right down to Bryan getting his moment, which I was skeptical of coming into this show. Because we know that Bryan is winding down his full-time career. And they're setting up Swerve and Hangman, to have another match, at least one more match. And that's a feud that I'm very much interested in. I love what Hangman has been doing, and I want to see him and Swerve, get back at it in the ring. But I was skeptical about the Bryan story, but they told the story ever since you go back all the way to Dynasty in April, the match he had with Will Ospreay. When Ospreay dropped him on his head with the Tiger Driver, and he sold that he was injured. And ever since then, the story with Bryan, this entire summer, the spring into the summer, has been about his body, his failing health. Nigel McGuinness going on TV, Brittle Bryan, the neck break kid. It's all about the neck. And he comes out there, he's got the kinesio tape. It's all over his shoulders and his neck and his back. This man is falling apart. He's being held together by fucking rubber bands. Can he even make it to Wembley? So he ends up being in the Owen Hart tournament. He wins the entire thing. Earns the right to go to the main event at Wembley Stadium to challenge for the title. Can he even make it there? Goes to the main event of Wembley, and of course it factored into the match here on this show. His injuries and his neck got dropped on the back of his neck again. But it was all designed for a purpose. It was all designed to build to this moment. And when you finally get that payoff, if you do it just right, you end up with a moment like we had here at the end of this show. Like I said, an outstanding match, largely because of the story they told going into that finish with Bryan getting his big win. It was emotional. It was an emotional close to the show, and I loved everything about that main event. And up until that point, I thought I was going to come on here and talk to you guys about how Will Ospreay and MJF went out there and had the match of the night. But I stand corrected. They had the second best match of the night. Because there's nothing on this show that was better than what we saw in that main event. But Ospreay and MJF, they were damn close. They went out there and had a fucking excellent match, with Will Ospreay getting his Wembley moment and walking out, once again, the AEW International Champion. And that's another example of stories that have been built up over a long period of time. I mentioned the Tiger Driver as an example. Well, it was in that match with Bryan Danielson. It was Will Ospreay who dropped him on the back of his neck. And ever since then, he has refused to use that move. No matter how many times Don Callis wanted him to, no matter how many times he had to stop himself from doing it. No, I can't do it. I can't do it. Even though it was ridiculous because, Danielson turned out to be fine. He was back like 2 weeks later. But that was the story that they were telling. It was all to build to this moment. This match, this finish doesn't work. If Ospreay wins with anything other than the Tiger Driver, he had to win with that move. Everything was building to that moment. But another story that has been building since April. And in the end, that's exactly what they gave us. And what a satisfying finish it was. But we also had Daniel Garcia making an appearance in the match as well. Last time we saw him, he was being annihilated by MJF. His future, by the way, for everybody just assuming, that must mean he's staying, he's re-signed with AEW. Not so fast. I'll talk about that later. That may not be the case. But these two matches alone, these were the two main events on this show. Although I would argue that the Women's World Championship match was also a main event on this show because that was the one I was looking forward to maybe as much as anything else. And that was a very good match too. All the key matches on this show, those two main events, the Women's World title match, those matches were excellent. And that helped lift this show. Again, you talk about how does this stack up against other AEW pay-per-views this year? This was definitely one of the better ones. This was an excellent show. It was not a perfect show. There were definitely some weak points on this show, one of which being the TBS title match. But by no means was this, to me, a subpar show, a disappointing show, only a good show. I thought it was an excellent show. And I enjoyed much of what they gave us here. Sting retired earlier this year. Just because he retired doesn't mean that he's not able to make an appearance every now and then when his presence is required. We saw Sting back in Wembley Stadium coming out tonight to seek and destroy, to come rescue his boy, Darby Allin, who walked out there looking like fucking Pinhead with thumbtacks sticking out of his face. We had multiple title changes on this show. We had some big announcements as well, which I'm going to get to here in a second. But we also had a Casino Gauntlet match. And as you well know, if you're an AEW fan, the Casino Gauntlet matches usually have a lot of surprises because we don't know all the participants that are going to be in the match. We knew Hangman Page was in that match and that Hangman had claimed he's going to win and he's going to have himself a guaranteed world championship match. I was expecting Hangman to win and go on to eventually challenge Swerve for the AEW World title. Swerve and Hangman came out of the show losers. Hangman Page did not win the Gauntlet match. We got a surprise winner, which actually made for a very underwhelming finish to what I thought was a fun match otherwise. But to the surprise, I think, of very few people. One of these surprises in the Casino Gauntlet match on the show was this man. And in fact, Ricochet is all elite. I think we all expected this was coming. It was just a matter of when. It was not a matter of if. Let me tell you something. He came out there, and in just the opening moments that he was in the ring for that gauntlet, it was Ricochet doing Ricochet things. He looked like, he has just been chomping at the bit to get back in the ring and show people who the fuck he is. So he was out there doing all the things that you would expect Ricochet to be doing. He was flying around. He was, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Didn't get the win there, but it did establish him that he is now part of the AEW roster. I'm sure Will Ospreay is just grinning from ear to ear, waiting for the inevitable showdown with Ricochet and Pac. There's so many different matches that you can do with this man. And I'm not going to sit here and get into a whole thing about whether or not, he's going to be in a better position than he was in with WWE. As I said at the time, when it looked like he was leaving and he was not going to re-sign and stay with WWE, I'm not looking at Ricochet as a future AEW World Champion. I actually don't think that ultimately the spot that he will settle in on this roster is going to be radically different than the spot he was in WWE. But now he has more people to work with. He's got fresh opponents to work with. And maybe he will end up in a better spot. It's hard to imagine he'll be in a spot any worse. So just because, he's going to get lost in the shuffle and, people think he's going to walk on in, he's going to be wrestling for the world title. I'll speak for myself. I had no illusions about that when he left WWE. I still have no illusions about that. But this is a guy who obviously feels that his talents are not being utilized in the way that he would like for them to be utilized. And he has spent many years, 5 or 6 years, working for another promotion, has wrestled everybody that there is to wrestle, and feels as if his head, his bald head, has smacked the ceiling, and there's no place higher for him to go. So why fault the guy for wanting to leave and go work somewhere else when they clearly would love to have him? And it's not like he's going to make a terrible living working for Tony Khan. Now he's a man renewed. It's like, again, a baseball player who gets traded after playing on the same team in the same city for 10 years, and they get traded to another city and another team. It's a fresh coat of paint. Now he'll have different people to work with, gets to keep his name. Maybe it ends up being a lateral move, but I'm happy for the guy. He went out there tonight at Wembley Stadium and got a great reaction. Got a great reception from the crowd. They were very happy to see him. And you probably had people who were genuinely surprised, who don't follow every little thing on the internet, and maybe they didn't expect Ricochet to be in that match. I'll tell you one person who I did not expect to be in that match. I marked out when he walked out there, and that was Nigel McGuinness. Nigel McGuinness on this show got kissed by Mariah May and got to make his in-ring return. This man has not wrestled a match since 2011. That's when Adam Copeland retired for the first time before he eventually came back. That's how long it's been since we have been able to see Nigel McGuinness in the wrestling ring in an actual match. And for him to go out there in London, of all places, in front of 53,000 people at Wembley Stadium and get the kind of reception that he got, as somebody who followed his career from the Ring of Honor days, because I was there for a lot of matches he had in Ring of Honor. I was there for some of the matches he had in TNA when he was Desmond Wolfe. And for his career to have ended the way that it did was a very sad thing. And I know he struggled with that for a very long time. And it took years for him to accept it and come to peace with it. And he seems like he is now. And he's really carved out a nice niche for himself as an announcer. I think he's one of the better announcers that they have. But I'm very happy he was able to go out there and get that moment. He may not get that match with Bryan Danielson. I don't know. Maybe it'll happen. Maybe it won't. But he got to go out there and he looked great. He looked great for the time that he was in there. He looked great. So there were a lot of fun moments like that up and down the show. Not a perfect show, but between all of that and the return of Jamie Hayter, this was an excellent show. This is your AEW All In London 2024 review. It is Sunday, August 25th, 2024. I am the Solomonster. I said I got some announcements, which we'll get to in just a second. But we got some super chats that are going to be popping up on screen. If you would like to drop a super chat, they are open. I will be reading your messages a little bit later on when we hang out, so please get them on in if you would like to do so.
I am the learning tree.
Knew that was coming. Hey, Jeremy Rose, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Jeremy Rose, for the learning tree. Learning tree was on this show tonight, too. And thankfully, that program is now done. That's another positive from this show. Jericho and Hook, finally, done, finished. Time to move on. Can't hate on that. In fact, you know what, Jericho? I think he did so well in this program, I think he deserves a nice long vacation. That's what I think. Let us hope. But I mentioned we have some announcements. AEW officially announced Australia. They're coming to Australia for their debut in 2025. There was a story, actually the Sporting News is the outlet that broke the news about a week ago, that there was an Australian show coming next year at some point. They were scouting 3 different potential stadium locations. Well, now we know that AEW is going to be running Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane, Australia on Saturday, February 15th, 2025. That stadium, from what I see, can fit anywhere between 50 and 60,000 people, which is what they had here at Wembley Stadium for this show. But it's not just their Australia debut, it's AEW Grand Slam coming to Brisbane. Now, traditionally, Grand Slam is an episode of Dynamite, and they usually run Arthur Ashe Stadium out here in Queens, as they're doing next month. So this is a little bit different. Now, they did not specify whether or not this is going to be a Dynamite or it's going to be a pay-per-view, but I can't imagine if they're going to run a big stadium show like this, that it would be anything other than a pay-per-view. Because usually they don't have a pay-per-view in the month of February. So Grand Slam is moving from September to February next year. My guess is it will be a pay-per-view. The other announcement, and we kind of found out about this yesterday because people saw the digital billboards advertising it. But it is official that AEW is also moving Forbidden Door. So not only is Grand Slam moving next year, but Forbidden Door is being bumped backwards. Usually it's in June. But of course, they already announced that All In is coming to Texas next year at Globe Life Field Stadium. That's going to be on July 12th. Now, if they would run Forbidden Door in late June like they normally do, you're going to have a 2-week turnaround. Like we have here with All In and All Out. I don't want that. And you don't want 2 weeks between pay-per-views. That's ridiculous. You certainly don't want to do that more than once a year. So now we know they are moving Forbidden Door into the spot that All In is usually in late August. And so Forbidden Door 2025 will be taking place in London on Sunday, August 24th, likely at Wembley. They didn't specify, but they did have the little Wembley logo in the corners. So that could be Wembley Arena or it could be Wembley Stadium. I would guess the stadium, but either or. It will be at one of the Wembley locations on August 24th of next year. And so Tony Khan making some big moves internationally in 2025. He's going, no pun intended, he's going all in. They're not shying away from running these big stadium shows. And look, they put 53,000 people in Wembley for this show. And say what you want to about the fact that they had 81,000 last year, and now they were down to 53. That's still 53,000 tickets that they sold for this show. So if they feel like they can go to these other places overseas, these other countries, these other continents, and they can put 35, 40, 45, 50,000 people in a stadium for a first run show in Australia, because the first time that you run, like last year at Wembley, you're always going to have your best crowd that very first time. It's the novelty of it. So obviously he's banking on the fact that they'll be able to sell enough tickets to make it worthwhile. And of course, we're still waiting on word about the television deal with Warner Brothers Discovery, which every week that goes by, we could potentially hear some news on that front. So there's big things afoot for AEW, but those are the announcements they made tonight. Also, hit that like button. We're aiming for at least 500 here during the live stream. That would be the goal, which I think we are well on our way to, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue. And if you missed it, episode 876 of the podcast, usually the Sound Off podcast goes up on Sundays. Because of All In, it went up a day early. So if you missed it when you're done here, go check it out. That's episode 876 on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the other platforms is where you can find it. Some good shit on there.
I am the learning tree.
Hey, thank you for all the gifted memberships as well.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it very much. There were 3 matches on the buy-in pre-show and a major return. We had a 16-man tag team match. Yes, I said 16-man tag team match. With Private Party, Alex Reynolds, John Silver, Ari Daivari, Jay Lethal, Satnam Singh, and Anthony Ogogo, taking on Top Flight, Kyle Fletcher, Rocky Romero, Kip Sabian, Action Andretti, Lio Rush, my God, Tommy Billington. It never ends. This was the get everyone on the show match that they added a few hours before showtime. Which a match, by the way, which included Lio Rush having a face-to-knee confrontation with Satnam Singh. And it did not work out well for Lio Rush. Dante Martin finished off Daivari with a frog splash for the win for his team. We had Willow Nightingale and Tomohiro Ishii taking on Kris Statlander and Stokely Hathaway. This was played for comedy when Stokely was in, as you would expect. I'm trying to think when the last time was Stokely would have even been in a match. I don't even remember. But he started throwing chops that Ishii was just no-selling. Then he bumped all over the place for him before Statlander saved him from a brainbuster attempt. Stokely actually got one move in. He got one real offensive move in which was a brain bust. Oh, not a brain buster. That would have been something. A spine buster. He had a spine buster on Ishii, who immediately popped up and no-sold the move. Because, I mean, come on. Ishii's going to sell a move from Stokely Hathaway. Get the fuck out of here. So he popped right up. Both ladies got back in. Willow took out Statlander with a pounce. And the sliding lariat from Ishii put Hathaway down for the win for the baby faces, which means that Willow now gets to choose the stipulation for her CMLL Women's World Title defense against Kris Statlander at All Out, which is in 2 weeks. Statlander won an eliminator match a few weeks ago, so she's getting a title match. Willow will get to decide what that match is going to be. And we had a 10-man tag team match, because if a 16-man tag team match was not enough, we got a 10 with The Natural, Dustin Rhodes, Sammy Guevara, the Von Erichs, and Katsuyori Shibata, taking on Brian Cage, Bishop Khan, Toa Leona, Matt Taven, and Mike Bennett. This was another party match. To get as many people on the show as possible, Sammy Guevara absolutely crushed Matt Taven with a Swanton Bomb. This was like the Swanton Bomb that Jeff Hardy has been doing. When he goes up, and these days, you know, physically, he's not quite in the state that he used to be in. So he goes up, and he just lands with all of his body weight on the other person. That's what this was. So he crushed him with it. Dustin ended up getting the pin. So Dustin Rhodes, man. Dustin Rhodes has been on a roll recently. For those who don't know, Dustin Rhodes is a 2-time champion at the moment in Ring of Honor. He has 2 different tag team titles, the 6-man belt and the regular tag belts in Ring of Honor. He has the tag belts with Sammy Guevara, the 6-man belts with the Von Erich boys. And he comes in here, he rolls on into Wembley and picks up the win. So this man is on a roll of late. After the match, the heels attacked, and that left Kevin Von Erich all alone. And Matt Taven got up at his face, only to get the Iron Claw. He got the claw from Kevin, what is it, from Toy Story, right? The claw. He got the claw from Kevin Von Erich, and then all the other baby faces came in, and they gave claws to the heels. So that was a cool moment. But enough about that. Then came the only thing really worth a damn, if we're being honest, on this pre-show. Saraya, and no, it's not Saraya, but Saraya came out with Harley Cameron and the entire Knight family. So she had all of her family with her. Her mother was there, her brother, and they all make their way to the ring. And Saraya was pissed. She was pissed because all the fans here in jolly old England are booing her. It's her home country, and she's getting booed. And she pointed out that 1 year ago, here at Wembley on this show, she walked out the AEW Women's World Champion. 1 year later, she's on this show. She has no match. It's the only reason she's on the show is because she decided to walk out in front of everybody. So she wasn't very happy about that. She says she's the best wrestler to come out of England. The best wrestler to come out of England, you say? That was a cue that something was about to happen here. Said that this show will not go on until she gets the respect she deserves. And then they hit the music, and out comes Jamie Hayter. Finally. Walks out to a massive ovation. This woman has not wrestled a match. We have not seen her since Double or Nothing in 2023. It's been over a year that she has been out of action with the injury from hell. I don't know what's going on at the scrum. I really hope that she speaks at the scrum and we get some more clarity on what she's been going through and what the nature of the injury or injuries was. Because I remember when she first got hurt, I thought it was a shoulder issue. And I just thought, okay, she might be out. Hopefully she's not out for that long. Because she was really on a roll at that time, had a lot of momentum, and she was the champion, but then dropped the belt and then vanished. So I thought maybe a few months, she'll be back. I had no idea that this woman was going to be off television for the next fucking 15 or 16 months. That's nuts. So she came out, she looked fantastic. Everybody went nuts for her. She missed last year's Wembley show. because of the injury. So it was really cool for her to walk out there in front of all these people and get that kind of reception, even if it was on the pre-show. She took out the entire Knight family as she was making her way down to the ring. She got in the ring before Saraya's mom attacked from behind. She put down Saraya's mom. Not the only mother to be harmed on this show. We'll get to that. Saraya bailed. That left Harley in the ring to suffer the effects of the haterade. And that was it. Played her music. She celebrated. She was all fired up. You could tell that Jamie was very happy, very excited to be back here. And that's a huge pickup for the women's division, too. Jamie Hayter was the top woman in that division at the time that she got hurt. She was super over. She was the AEW Women's World Champion. She was always like in the shadow of Britt Baker. But as time went on, she just organically got over. And she superseded her, which wouldn't surprise me if that has to do with this, supposed report that Britt and Jamie don't get along, or Britt doesn't like Jamie very much. I wouldn't be surprised to find out if that was the reason why, or part of the reason why. Britt was the queen bee in that women's division, and Jamie just organically got over in a way that Britt never did. She outshined her. She became a bigger star than her. So hopefully she can claw back some of that momentum. Now, I know people are going to make a lot about the fact that she came back on the pre-show. Why not have her on the main card? I was waiting to see what would happen in the TBS title match before I passed judgment. And what happened was nothing. Nothing happened. Jamie never showed up on the main card. This was her one and only appearance on the show. If it is true that her and Britt Baker do not get along, or they don't want to work with each other, or Tony Khan doesn't want to, Tony Khan has enough issues to deal with drama backstage. And so maybe two combustible elements, maybe he doesn't want to put them together, oil and water, fine. But it would have been the perfect spot for her to come out either during or after the TBS title match, had Camille not been ejected as she was. It just seemed like the natural spot for her to show up in. And at least for a while, you could have Britt and Jamie at least as allies. They don't have to just, be attached at the hip or anything like that. But, you set up for a tag match and, she could help combat the threat that Camille presents. So it was surprising that she showed up on the pre-show and then that was it. Do I wish that they would have had that spot for her on the main card? Yeah, that would have been nice. But you know what? I'm just glad she's back. I'm glad she's back. They did something to help reestablish the fact that she's back. And look, for whatever reason, if she's not going to be involved with Britt Baker or the TBS title scene and Camille and Mercedes and all of them, then she shouldn't be a part of the match. Obviously, Tony Khan, one would hope, has other plans for her. Hopefully those plans include building her back up for an eventual match with Mariah May for the AEW Women's World Championship, because that is a big match that I'd like to see down the road. Probably not until early next year. But she should want to claw her way back into contention for the belt that she held the last time we saw her. So I think in due time that will come. But like I said, I'm just happy that she's back. I would have been very disappointed if she wasn't on the show at all. So I'm glad we got her here. The main card opened with the London ladder match for the trios titles with the Patriarchy, defending against the House of Black, the Bang Bang Gang, and the Wildcard team of the Bastard Pack, Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta. It was smart. What they did here was they started the entrances for this during the pre-show. So by the time the main card, and this was like 10 minutes before the main card.
I'm the learning tree.
10 minutes before the main card even started.
Thanks, guys.
So by the time the show began, they were already out there, ding, 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 and we're off to the races. This was the car crash match of the night. Nick Wayne took some rough bumps in this one. I mean, everybody did. But Nick Wayne in particular took some rough bumps in here. Pac tried a springboard. Christian chucked a ladder at his face and then hit a brutal kill switch onto a chair that was set up. Mother Wayne was out there, and Mother Wayne tossed Christian a can of, I believe it was hairspray, and he misted Yuta off of a ladder with it. Juice Robinson blocked the spray. When Mother Wayne tried to spray him in the face, he was able to put something up in front of his face and block it. Then there was a table set up outside the ring. And so Juice teased that he was going to put Nick Wayne's mom through a table. Thankfully, Killswitch showed up, and he goozled Juice and sent him backwards. And Juice Robinson took a bump through the table, actually, he didn't go through the table. He landed on the table, and the table fell over. So the table did not break, but he did take a table bump. Killswitch then helped Christian up the ladder, but Buddy Matthews put a stop to that. Threw a ladder in his face. That's one way to stop that. Matthews climbed a shorter ladder. Christian jumped from one ladder to another and put Matthews through a table with a spear. Now, the table was propped up in the corner. Was it propped up? It was in the corner. And Christian speared him off the ladder. They both took a bump. They were both laid out. Killswitch then put Christian on his shoulders and climbed the ladder, but Pac made the save. Booted Christian off the ladder, and he pulled down just one of the trios titles to win the match for his team. You know, earlier in the match, there was a moment there where Christian, Killswitch started climbing, and Christian commanded him to climb down. He didn't want him climbing. He didn't want him stealing the glory. So after the match was over, him yelling at Killswitch and blaming him for the loss was quite rich. But Christian was not happy. And the House of Black, they paid respect to Pac. I think Buddy Matthews had already left, but Brody King, Malachi Black, they got back in the ring. They shook hands with Pac, raised his arm, and then left. I thought this was fun for what it was. Pac, in the end, ended up getting his Wembley moment. He didn't get his international title match on this show. He's getting that in 2 weeks at All Out. But he did win a title, and he did get his moment here as part of a team that only first formed on Collision last night. And so what that tells me is that the Lucha Bros and Pac, Death Triangle, they were going to win the trios titles on this show. Had the Lucha Bros not made the decision, obviously, to leave and go to WWE. If they were sticking around, not only would they have been on the show, I think they would be the trios champions right now. That's what that tells me. Now, I was shocked that they put the real main event on this early in the show. Because up next, we had the Women's World Championship match with Timeless Toni Storm defending against Mariah May. They showed Mariah's mother in the front row. I think it might have been Mariah's brother, some family member. I don't know if she has a brother, whoever it was. Maybe it was her boyfriend. I don't know. But there was some guy that was with her mom that looked like he was there with her. So her mom was in the front row. Seemed like a lovely lady. I didn't think anything of it at the time that they showed her, but we'll come back to her in a second. They did mention on commentary that this was only the second time that her mom had the chance to watch her wrestle live. It may well be the last after what happened here in this match. They also showed Mina Shirakawa sitting up in one of the luxury boxes. I think I saw, oh gosh, there was somebody else sitting right behind her. Rachel Ellering was there. But they showed Mina, and everybody in the stadium, you heard them, they went wild for Mina. When obviously they showed Mina up on the screen. She looked very concerned that these two women that she was such good friends with were in this bitter fight to the death with each other.
I am the learning tree.
Speaking of death.
Thanks, guys.
Natasha and Oz and everybody else who has dropped one, thank you very much. Thank you for the learning tree. Thank you for all the super chat love. I appreciate it. Mina getting a big pop on the big screen. Hey, when I think of Mina, that's what I think of. I think of big pop. Surprised I don't pop. So there was an early sunset bomb by Mariah from the apron to the floor. She then turned around and spat in Luther's face. This is the first time we even saw Luther since Mariah threw him off the stage all those weeks ago. She spat in his face and said, "Fuck you" to him. Some people would be turned on by that. I don't think Luther was, though. She also went over to the announcers and she gave Nigel McGuinness a kiss on the forehead. She gave Luther a shotgun drop kick into the barricade, then walked over to her own mother. Now, you would think that Mariah May is going to walk over to Mother May and give her a nice hug, right? Only the second time that her mom is able to be there live to watch her daughter perform. Mariah May walks over to her mother and smacks the shit out of her. I mean, she hauled off and she slapped this woman hard across the face. Her own mother. I love this woman. I love this woman. I love this woman so much. She didn't just slap her. She smacked the dog shit out of her is what she did. So Toni ends up delivering Storm Zero to Mariah on top of the ring steps. Toni then goes over to console Mariah's mom, and she presses her up against her bosom. All this to just get the camera off of Mariah long enough for her to do the job, so that when they went back to her, she was bleeding. So Mariah had some blood coming, looked like she was split open along the hairline. You had to know that there would be some blood in this match after the angle they shot on TV where Toni Storm bled a gusher. I thought both women would bleed. But at the very least, Mariah had to bleed for what she did to Toni, so that wasn't a surprise. Toni then went on offense before Mariah spit in her face. A lot of spitting on this show. Mariah fought back with a missile dropkick. Multiple sweet cheek musics connected, but as Mariah went for a fourth one, Toni popped up and wiped her out with a huge lariat before delivering a sweet cheek music of her own. Storm Zero connects, gets a close near fall for the champion. Justin says Mariah's mom got slapped like she didn't gift a Nintendo Switch for Christmas. Let me tell you something. If I ever smacked my mother like that back in the day, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. Okay? I wouldn't be sitting here doing this stream. I mouthed off once to my mother in a bowling alley because I was frustrated that I was bowling badly. And to this day, when I think back on that, I still have to rub my cheek. Okay? So she's lucky that she was able to get off scot-free here. I don't think most mothers would have tolerated that. So we got a slugfest between them. Aubrey Edwards tried to step in. She got shoved away by both women, each of whom hit a low punt kick to the other, which had no effect because, of course, it wouldn't. Then they headbutted each other. We got a double down. Mariah dodged Storm Zero and hit Mayday, but Storm kicked out. Mariah then tried to grab the women's world title, but Luther reached up and stopped her, and then he flipped Mariah off. She opted instead to grab the bloody high heel shoe from the corner, but Toni stopped her, grabbed the shoe out of her hand, and Toni Storm had a little crisis of conscience here. What should I do? Should I bash this woman's brains in with this shoe as she did to me, or should I not? And she reared back with it, but she just couldn't bring herself to do it, so she threw it away. Mariah got a jackknife pin attempt for two, popped up, hit a running knee strike to the back of Toni's head, then hit one right to the face, and then finished Toni off with her own Storm Zero to win the Women's Championship. Excellent. An excellent match to cap off a story that was months in the making. And with the right outcome, too. This was the right time, the right moment to do a title change and put that belt on Mariah May. Toni Storm had that Women's World Championship for 9 months. She had that title for 9 months, and it's not even so much a matter of all the classic matches she had. She had some decent matches and some really good matches. It was a mix of both, but it wasn't even about that. This timeless gimmick, and I'm not sure how much more she's going to be able to get out of it. I don't know if she's just going to be timeless Toni Storm for another year. I don't know if they're going to start to phase down the gimmick. It would almost be a shame because the gimmick is still over, and she's so fucking good at it. But she hit on something with this gimmick, and maybe for some people it's too goofy. Maybe some people, they just can't get into it. I think the work that she's done with this character has been the best work of her career. I think that it's been just a fantastic run that she's been on, and she's been able to get very creative with it. And shout out, I guess, also to RJ City, because apparently he's also been very deeply involved in this story and many of the segments that we've seen, just from a creative end. So whether it's him or Toni Storm or Tony Khan, Mariah, whoever's been involved in this story, deserves kudos because it has played out over the course of this entire year, and it was all to build to this moment. They played this story out. You talk about long-term stories in this company, and sometimes people complain that there aren't enough of them. Can't say that about this. This was the best long-term story that they've had in this company all year. And we got the payoff here with Mariah May winning the Women's Championship. The finish was not done in a way where it came across to me like, oh, we're going to get a rematch, right? I'm not saying we won't, but when it was over, it didn't feel like, oh, we got to get a rematch. It felt like maybe these two were going to move on from each other. Toni, when the match was over, it looked like she was smiling through the pain. And then she kind of twirled off to the back like she was, dancing and twirling for the crowd. Thank you, like after some great movie performance, because that's the character that she's doing. So I don't know if we're going to get a rematch between these two. I don't know if maybe Mina, how long Mina is going to be stateside for. We have a pay-per-view in 2 weeks. Hell, maybe they do Mariah and Mina for the women's title. So I don't know what is going to be next, but this was great. This was great. I love this. We had the learning tree. I said the learning tree. Chris Jericho against Hook for the FTW Championship. If Hook does not win the title, he can never again challenge for the FTW belt. Jericho sang himself to the ring as I drank myself into a stupor.
I am the learning tree.
That's exactly why.
Thanks, guys.
Hard liquor. Jack, very little soda. So Jericho sang himself to the ring while Fozzy played. The less said about this, the better. Since it was anything goes, FTW rules. Big Bull. How much did I drink, actually? It's pretty strong. Big Bill. Big Bill's like a big bull. Big Bill and Brian Keith, they immediately got in the ring with Jericho. They attacked Hook 3-on-1. The crowd, by the way, I have to make mention of this. So on Collision last night, there was a match between Hook and Big Bill. And the crowd was going nuts for Big Bill. I don't know why. I don't know if there's some hidden reason. It's like an inside joke, or if they just felt like, hey, you know what? We don't like this Hook kid, and so we're gonna root for Big Bill. They were going nuts for Big Bill. They were booing Hook. And so the love for Big Bill extended here into this match because the people in Wembley Stadium, they were going crazy for him. And they were rooting for him and cheering for him. So Jericho put Hook down with the code breaker, covered him. Hook kicked out at 1. Jericho went under the ring for some pool cues and a bag of cricket balls that he then emptied in the ring. And, I mean, these balls looked heavy. So, I mean, I haven't played cricket myself, but I don't know what these were made out of, but I know cricket balls have some weight to them. So they're laying around in the ring. The only thing is, when Hook lifted Jericho for a back suplex, the spot was going to be that Jericho lands on one of the cricket balls, but they were all strewn about, and he landed in one spot where there were no balls. So he did not land on the balls. So then Hook grabbed the cricket bat. He smacked Jericho with it, tried to hit the cricket balls at him with the bat. Didn't have a lot of success. So he just started picking up his balls and throwing them at Jericho. Brian Keith smacked Hook with a trash can lid that allowed Jericho to lock in the walls of Jericho. Hook escaped and locked into walls of his own, but Bill broke it up. Now it's still 3-on-1. And remember, Hook has the one eye, because he's got a bandage over the bad eye that was blinded when Jericho threw a fireball in his face about a month ago. So as Bill and Keith are setting up a table outside with a barbed wire board on it, Bill tries to chokeslam Hook onto it. Hook, though, escapes and sends Big Bill into the ring post. Jericho then rakes Hook's one good eye, and Hook dodged the Judas effect and hit a T-bone suplex. Hook then rips off the eye bandage that he was wearing. It's like this black, it wasn't even an eye patch. It was like a black bandage that was over his eye, and reveals that his eye is okay. He can see. And I thought to myself, what a fucking moron. You wrestled a match against a 7-foot man on Collision last night with one eye, and the first 3/4 of this match, outnumbered 3-1, with one eye, just to do the big reveal like, oh, I can see. That would be like me getting in the ring, coming down to the ring for a match. Pick a podcaster. It's me against that person, okay? It's me, whoever it is. And I come down to the ring for my match with one arm tied behind my back. Right? I got one arm tied behind my back, and I got my other arm in a sling because I broke my arm. So I get into the ring, I have no hands, I have no arms, I can't defend myself. But then midway through the match, I go, oh, I'm okay. I actually have use of this arm. I wrestled the first 15 minutes with no arms. I used my head, I was headbutting the entire time. But I actually have a working arm. See? You know what people would think if they looked at me? They would say, this guy's out of his fucking mind. Why would he wrestle 3/4 of this match with only one arm? Or with no arms? Doesn't make sense. What I'm saying doesn't even make sense. But this made even less sense. But I guess he wanted the big pop. So that's why he did it. Bill grabbed a hold of him on the apron, held him for Jericho, who swung the pool cue, but Hook moved out of the way, and Bill took the shot instead. And Timber, the big redwood, falls backwards and falls through the table with the barbed wire board on it. Brian Keith tried to run distraction with the FTW title belt, but Taz had seen enough. The Taz is on commentary. This was his breaking point. He goes, I can't take this anymore. This is ridiculous. It's a handicap match. So Taz throws his headset down, gets up from the announce desk, pulls Brian Keith off the apron, and applies the Tazmission to a huge pop. You could count on one hand how many times Taz has physically gotten involved in an angle or a match or taken a bump in the last 15 years and still have fingers left over, right? It doesn't happen very often. But he locks in the Tazmission. Of course, it gets a big pop. Meanwhile, the camera pans back and you see that in the ring at the same time, Hook has locked Red Rum in on Jericho, and he's got him down. So we have stereo submissions here. We have the father outside the ring with the Tazmission, the son inside with the submission hold. And Jericho submits. Taz regains, or Hook regains Taz's FTW title. And all is right with the world. That was a really cool moment. There isn't much cool about anything in this storyline. I just haven't liked the storyline. When I see these segments on TV, I want to change the channel. There's been nothing interesting about this. Clearly, it was building to Hook getting the belt back with the idea that Jericho will put Hook over. And Hook will come out of this a bigger star and better off than he was when he came into it. Maybe there are things that Hook has learned from Chris Jericho off camera behind the scenes that you and I are not aware of. As far as his position on the show and where Hook is now in the pecking order, coming out of this, now that he beat Jericho, he's no higher up on that chart, on that, star chart than he was coming into this. He's in the exact same spot, holding a title that isn't even officially recognized by the company. A year ago on this show, and I think it was on the pre-show, but a year ago on this show, it was on the pre-show actually, because Punk opened the main card and the fight happened before then. But it was Jack Perry and Hook for the FTW title. And Hook won the belt. A year later, he's doing the exact same thing. Hook feels like he's spinning his wheels. Doesn't feel like he's really done much over the last year. He's certainly not in a better position now coming out of this than he was going into it. So I'm left to wonder exactly what was gained from this, other than the fact that we got a really cool moment here. I figured Taz had to get involved. Now, what I figured is that Taz was going to put Jericho in the Tazmission. This was better. What they did here was even better because it was just that cool visual of the father and the son with dueling submissions at the same time and everybody in Wembley in the background going nuts for it. And then Hook went outside. He embraced his father. They shared a hug. A rare moment of emotion here for Taz, who left the shades on. So if Taz was tearing up a little bit, we can't see because he had the shades on. So he went to go sit back down at the announce desk, and thankfully, this feud is now over. I will say, though, if there's one thing I hope that we do get out of this, I would like to see Big Bill get a bigger push. You would have to think at some point he and Jericho will be Splitsville. I don't know how long that the two of them are going to still, stay together for. I watched Bill's match with Hook on Collision. It wasn't just the fact that he got that great reaction. Like, I'm not expecting he's going to go back to the States and be getting Big Bill chants every week. Whatever it was, it was the fans having fun with it, but it did illustrate to me the fact that they should be doing more with him. And I know you could say that about a lot of people on the roster, but I'd like to see Big Bill get a bigger push. So that's one thing coming out of this that I hope maybe, possibly, we can get out of this. We had the Young Bucks, we had the Acclaimed, and we had FTR. Triple threat for the AEW World Tag Team titles. This was the usual Wild Bucks match where we have a lot going on. Too much going on. There was a spot late in the match with Nick Jackson down outside. Matt Jackson looked over at Max Caster and said, EVP trigger. So Max Caster went along with it, and he and Matt Jackson executed an EVP trigger to, I think it was, I don't know who it was on, but I know that after this spot, Caster then helped Cash Wheeler take out Matt with a shatter machine. Bowens flew in with a blockbuster on Wheeler to break up the pin. The Acclaimed went for their finish. Matt, though, took the referee, Rick Knox, the usual referee for the Young Bucks matches, the most inept referee in all of wrestling. Matt took him, and that allowed Nick Jackson to hit a low blow. Nick then threw one of the tag team titles into the ring so that Rick Knox could play fetch with it, as Matt took the other title while Dingbat over here was occupied. And he went to go use the title. Billy Gunn, though, cut him off with a famouser. And Bowens hit the Arrival. Caster followed that with a mic drop. Nick, though, broke up the pin. Wheeler took out the Acclaimed outside with a wild, I would say Darby Allin-esque suicide dive, leaving Dax Harwood alone with the Bucks as Matt Jackson got rolled up, but Harwood ended up eating a belt shot, and he kicked out, but the Bucks then hit the EVP trigger, and they pinned him to retain the tag team titles. It was the expected good match. I wouldn't say it rose beyond that. This was not some great match. This was not some all-time memorable match of the year candidate or anything like that I'm sure FTR and the Bucks would love to have. That's not what this was. It was good, but beyond that, we have seen the Bucks have classic matches. We have seen FTR have classic matches before. We've seen them have classic matches against each other, let alone individually with other teams. This was not one of them. The build to this match was no good. And so coming into this, that certainly didn't help, where you had other matches on this card which had great stories and really good, solid, fun, build up to where you really wanted to see these matches. That was not the case here. Certainly not in this guy's case. That was not the case here. As a match, it was fine, and the Bucks retaining is exactly what I expected. But we were not done yet, because after the match, the grizzled young veterans, James Drake and Zach Gibson, they showed up in the ring. They got up in the Bucks' faces for a showdown. I believe they had one match on AEW television many months ago, but they are not part of the company. We have not seen them in a while. So they showed up. They stared down the Bucks in the middle of the ring. The Bucks bailed. And so GYV turned their attention to FTR, and they started laying a beatdown on them instead. They hit a high-low on Cash Wheeler before staring down the Bucks again, saying that they would see them soon. Certainly made you think that they're going to be the next challengers up next, or if not next, very soon, for the AEW Tag Team titles. They should get some wins. Before they challenge for the championship, they probably should pick up a few wins, notch a few W's first before that. But they have staked their claim. I do wonder, a thought occurred to me at the end of this. I looked at this and I thought, I wonder if this was a spot that was designed for the Motor City Machine Guns. It sounds like, nothing's official, but it sounds like the Machine Guns may be on their way to WWE. NXT, wherever they end up, they're going to be going to WWE. That's what I think. There's nothing to base that on. There's nothing confirmed. If that's the case, though, I do wonder if, had they come to AEW, this would have been the spot where the Bucks win, and then when the match is over, the machine guns come out and they confront the Bucks, and that sets up a future match for the tag team titles, because that would have been the obvious feud, the Bucks and the machine guns. But the machine guns aren't coming in, and so GYV got the spot instead. That's just something I was thinking when this was over, that maybe this spot was not originally intended to be theirs. Or had things worked out differently, it would have been them instead of the grizzled young veterans in that spot. The Learning Sicko, Dr. Bropio. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you, sir. I'm going to be reading your messages here in a little bit, so don't go away. Going to have some fun with that. Hey, but you know what? It was nice to have a tag team title defense. Only the second one that we've had in the last, 4 months? 5 months? We had the Casino Gauntlet match. The winner of this gauntlet would earn a guaranteed AEW World Championship match whenever they want. That's the new wrinkle that they have thrown in. They've turned it basically into Money in the Bank, where you could cash in at any moment on any show. It doesn't have to be something where you call your shot in advance. And I would think that the fact that they threw that little wrinkle in there is because that's probably what will end up happening, is that the winner will, quote unquote, cash in at an inopportune moment. Otherwise, why even bother announcing that as the stipulation? Orange Cassidy had won the right to enter at number 1, which is important because this match could end at any moment. It's not like a Royal Rumble where everybody has to come out first. If you pin somebody, if you make them submit, the match is over, and you get a guaranteed world title match. So Cassidy came out number 1. In the number 2 spot, Kazuchika Okada, the reigning Continental Champion. Thank God. How the fuck are you going to have a show like this? First of all, how are you going to have a show like this and have nothing announced for Okada? One of the biggest stars in the company, probably one of the highest paid guys they have. I mean, they got guys who are still out hurt, who aren't even on the show. You've got Okada, who's ready to go, and he had no match announced for this show because they couldn't do Kenny Omega and Okada. That was the plan. There's not a doubt in my mind that was the plan for this show. So they had nothing for Okada coming into it. Instead, they saved him for the Gauntlet. At least it got him something to do on the show. He didn't defend his title. He defended it on Wednesday. But at least he had a spot here on the show. And not only a spot, but, him and Orange Cassidy here, right? Two former Chaos faction members. So he wanted a hug. Okada wanted a hug. Got a hug from Orange Cassidy, but it was a ruse. And Okada stared into the camera, and then he started to pummel Orange Cassidy. So they're going at it for a little bit. And then we get to number 3. And the number 3 entrant, and at first I didn't recognize the music. It took me a few seconds. But then I realized what the music was. In his first match since 2011, Nigel McGuinness, who only a few matches earlier was out there doing commentary, getting kissed by Mariah May. Here comes Nigel McGuinness. And of course, they're in London. And so everybody is losing their minds and they're going nuts. And he comes out to Fucking in the Bushes, which is the Oasis song that he used in Ring of Honor. So we're going old school here. Nigel looked great. Comes out, down to the ring. As I said, I had the chance to see Nigel in many matches over the years. Nigel was a fantastic wrestler. Had some great matches with so many people who are even on the AEW roster right now. The man who was in the main event of this show and won the world championship. Nigel shared the ring with him, and they had some classics as well. When Danielson left Ring of Honor to go to WWE, it was him and Nigel. They both were going to WWE. Things didn't work out for Nigel. Some stuff came up on the medicals, and he ended up in TNA, and then he ended up out of the business. And again, in many ways, it is a sad story that he didn't get to fulfill his potential in the ring. He should have been a much bigger star. But it just made it that much sweeter to me to see him come out and get that kind of reception. For a guy who hasn't been in the ring in 13 years, He came out in London, of all places, and got a hero's welcome. And I'm sure deep down, I mean, it just had to be the best feeling in the world for him. And he didn't miss a beat. You know, everything he did here in this match, you know, which was somewhat limited because it wasn't like a one-on-one match. But everything I saw him do in this match, he just looked like he never missed a beat. So he had a stare down with Okada, series of fake outs, led to a hard slap to the face by Nigel. Number 4 was Kyle O'Reilly. Number 5 in this gauntlet was Zack Sabre Jr., the winner of the G1 Climax this year. The man who will very likely, in a couple months, because he's getting his title shot early, will likely be your next IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. He came out, and I'm looking at him and Nigel going at it in the ring. Man, this was great. This was great. Definitely not something I was expecting to see when I watched this show. Was Zack Sabre and Nigel McGuinness in there doing their thing. Number 6 was Roderick Strong. Number 7 was the ROH World Champion, Mark Briscoe. Number 8, Hangman, Adam Page. Came in, dodged a dive by Orange Cassidy, took the fight to Briscoe, took the fight to Kyle O'Reilly. Okada and Sabre, they got sent outside. Cassidy got dropped with a fallaway slam, and Okada ate a slingshot dive by Hangman. While Roddy took a rough powerbomb from Hangman on the very edge of the ring. Cassidy dodged a buckshot lariat, but ended up eating a deadeye for a 2 count. Number 9, Jeff Jarrett, the last outlaw. He comes out and gets a monster pop. Jeff Jarrett comes out here at Wembley and gets a fucking Road Warrior pop. He's coming down to the ring with Karen Jarrett. I was like, the hell's going on here? But then again, these people were going nuts for Big Bill last night. So up is down, down is up. It is what it is. I wasn't expecting that reaction. But, you know, he's a legend. And so people want to, you know, they want to pay their respects to the legends. But no surprise here that we got some interaction between Hangman and Jarrett, who were fighting on the show only a few weeks ago. So they went face to face. They immediately traded shots. Jarrett was taking everybody out with right hands. He's throwing bombs. Everybody's feeding for him. He's knocking everybody down. I don't know what it is about some of the old timers, but Jarrett being one of them. But I think of Jerry Lawler. I think of him. I think of Scott Hall. I think of Bret Hart. There are just some people who had a great looking worked punch. They knew how to throw a punch to make it look, you know, wicked, but throw it in a realistic way and not throw it like, you know, in a way that makes you laugh. They had some great looking punches. And yet you look at a lot of wrestlers today, and by comparison, it's almost like, who's teaching these people how to throw a punch? It just doesn't look the same. It's like, why can't they look more like that? Because Jarrett's working punch still looks great. So, like, everyone's feeding for it and going down for it. And I'm like, good, they should, because it still looks, you know, excellent. I just wish more people could throw a working punch like that. Hangman escaped some corner punches from Jarrett and then powerbombed him over the top rope, out of the ring, onto the pile of wrestlers who were bunched up on the floor. No, not Shane McMahon. We're not talking about Shane and his phantom punches. Yeah, we don't need that on Dynamite. You know, the worst part about those Shane punches is that people sell for it. It's bad enough, like, to throw them, but then to have to sell for it, I mean, that just makes it so much worse. But then we got to number 10. And this was the big surprise here in this. Well, you know what? I take that back. There were 2 big surprises, Nigel being one of them. But the other big surprise here in this match was number 10, and that was Ricochet, who, if you missed it earlier, the graphic is up. It is official. Ricochet is All Elite. He has signed a multi-year deal. He is officially a part of the AEW roster. So he came out at number 10 and obviously got a great reception from the crowd. He got pyro. He was the only guy here, the first guy anyway, to get pyro coming out here for this match. And he was showing off, man. Ricochet came out there. He's moving around like the Ricochet of old, man, where he's putting a little something extra on it. He's showing off. He's flying around all over the place. He had a springboard shooting star to the floor onto a pile of guys. So, no surprise to see him, but good to see him go out there and get a big moment in front of all those people. Number 11. I mean, this was a surprise. Christian Cage, coming down to the ring, clutching his ribs and limping after having participated in the ladder match earlier in the show and losing the trios titles. Here comes Christian. And he gets wiped out by Ricochet off the top rope. Before he even gets into the ring, he gets wiped out. Ricochet back inside, ends up getting laid out by a buckshot lariat. Hangman went for the pin, but Okada just casually strolls over and lightly kicks him in the back of the head. And this pisses off Hangman, who gets up in his face. Okada escaped a deadeye attempt, but a rolling elbow from Hangman led to a buckshot attempt. Karen Jarrett, though, grabbed onto his leg to prevent him from doing so. And that momentary distraction allowed Jeff Jarrett to sneak up behind him in the ring. He had his guitar, and he smashed the guitar over Hangman's head to a big pop from the crowd. Okada followed with a Rainmaker to Jarrett. Some words I did not expect to be saying here as I recap this pay-per-view in 2024 that Jeff Jarrett ate a Rainmaker from Kazuchika Okada, but here we are. Sabre ducked a Rainmaker into an arm submission. Cassidy and Sabre traded a series of pin attempts. Cassidy hit the orange punch, but Roddy came in with the end of Heartache. Briscoe then flew in with a froggy bow. McGuinness spun out of a J-Driller attempt, but hung up O'Reilly with Briscoe's assist and delivered the old Tower of London for a close 2 count. Then we had number 12, and this is as far as the gauntlet went. It's supposed to be 21, up to 21 people. We ended with number 12, because out at number 12 came Luchasaurus. Not Killswitch, it said Luchasaurus. And I think he came out to the old music, too. So he comes running down to the ring. Christian is in the ring, and he's got just a stunned expression on his face. And Luchasaurus gets inside. I think he grabbed him by the throat, grabs Christian by the throat. And it looks like finally, right? We're going to get the split, and the dinosaur is going to break out on his own. But it was all Swerve. And then he lets Christian go instead. He grabs Kyle O'Reilly and chokeslams him and places Christian on top of him for the shock win. Christian Cage wins the Casino Gauntlet. They had a shot of Hangman Page on the outside, eyes bugging out of his head. He looked furious because this was his shot. This was his chance to guarantee himself a world championship match and a match with Swerve. And it was taken away from him. The finish they did here was certainly a choice. It sucked the life out of the crowd. They were not expecting it. They were not happy about it, which was kind of the point. Having Christian win a guaranteed world championship match after we just recently saw him challenge Swerve for the world championship at Double or Nothing makes this a very underwhelming finish. You know, you got to consider not only the story of Christian, coming back out and getting one up on everybody, but just what it means, given the stipulation. It's very underwhelming. Now, you can make sense out of it very easily for people saying, oh, it doesn't make sense. Why would Christian win? It doesn't make sense. Well, no, actually, you can definitely make sense of it. Christian literally went on television only a few weeks ago while he was holding the trios titles over his shoulder and told us, he told the world, his goal here is not to stop with the trios titles. His goal is to win every championship in this company. It only begins with these. But he was going to win every title, and that includes the world title, which he feels like he was screwed out of at Double or Nothing. So he put us, on notice that this is what he was planning on doing. And it's also possible that they're doing this because they want a world championship match in 2 weeks at All Out, feel they don't have enough time to set up a real challenger for the title, and so they're going to go with Christian instead. Then again, it doesn't mean that Christian is going to be announced in advance for a title match, because the rules are he can cash in his title opportunity at any time. Might he do that on Dynamite this week? It's possible. I don't expect him to win. It's not going to win, I wouldn't think. I mean, I love Christian Cage, and I love the gimmick, and I love everything he's doing, but there's enough going on right now at the top of the card with the other people involved, Hangman and Swerve, and the other potential challengers, that we don't need Christian in that spot right now. So we'll see when he actually, gets his title match, if it's going to be a kind of a quick thing, if he's going to hold on to it for a while. But we do have All Out coming up. We know Hangman is going to get his hands on Swerve at some point. Whether there's a title on the line or not, he's going to get his hands on Swerve Strickland. This will only make him even more unhinged than he already was. So again, you can make sense out of this. Just because it makes sense doesn't mean that it's not underwhelming. It was very much an underwhelming finish to what I thought otherwise was a really fun match. Now, this was the third Casino Gauntlet that they have done in 4 months. First one they did, I think, was at the end of April. The last one they did was, I want to say, in June. It was a main event on Dynamite. It was an excellent match. This one also, a lot of fun. So they've really hit on something with this concept, and they need to keep it around. What they don't need to do is abuse it and drive it into the ground, which is what I fear they're going to end up doing with this. If they do one of these every other month, it's too much. Better to save this for once or twice a year, even twice a year. Do it twice a year, spread it out, maybe once earlier in the year, once later in the year. You want to crown a number one contender, I think that's fine. Throw some surprises in there. I think it's a great idea. But 3 of them in 4 months, you keep up at this pace, and I just feel like they're going to burn this thing out, before long, and it's not going to be nearly as fun as it is right now. But the main highlights were Nigel's return and Ricochet's debut. And again, I think Ricochet, he's got certain opponents lined up when Tony Khan is ready to put him in the ring with them. There's some big Ricochet matches that he can do. For that audience, if you want to say, oh, there's some dream opponents for Ricochet, this roster is littered with them. Ospreay being obviously number one, but I mentioned Pac. I mean, there's any number of people for him to work with. And even some of the other people like an MJF, a Swerve, right? There's a lot of great matches that Ricochet can have. What I'm curious is, as far as Ricochet as a personality on TV, now Ricochet coming out and talking to us, cutting promos, talking to the audience, what's that going to look like? Because that was never his strong suit in WWE. Less of an issue in AEW, where the best wrestle. So if he can go out there and just have these outstanding, wild matches, people will go nuts for him. But I do feel like if he wants to kind of step up his game and elevate his game, there's got to be more to it than just that. Are we going to see a different side of Ricochet that maybe we didn't get a chance to see in WWE? I hope so. I hope he can show us something even beyond which that we saw from him in the other company. Because I already know what he can do in the ring. He can do incredible things in the ring. But what kind of stories are, Tony Khan going to come up for him in this company? I don't know. I'm curious to see if in fact he can end up in a spot higher up on the card than he was on Monday Night Raw. Because in many ways, I feel like it's going to end up being a lateral move. But we'll see. Hopefully he's happier now. Clearly he was not happy before, or else he would have re-signed with WWE. Makes sense to me. Speaking of Will Ospreay, he was up next. One-on-one with MJF for the AEW American Championship. At least that's what MJF is calling it. Technically, this was an international title match. Ospreay got an Assassin's Creed-inspired entrance to help promote the new video game, which is coming out in November. An Assassin's Creed entrance for the aerial assassin. I like it. The reaction for him coming out, what can I say? Superstar. Top number one babyface superstar reaction coming to the ring. MJF entered in red, white, and blue looking like Apollo Creed. We got an early Sasuke special from Ospreay out over the top rope onto the floor, landing on his feet. Back inside, MJF dodged the hidden blade and Os cutter, but Ospreay avoided the tombstone. And then we got a series of near falls back and forth between the two men. Ospreay wanted another Sasuke special a few minutes later, but this time, as he dove out over the top rope, MJF caught him in midair. And it wasn't totally smooth, but that's a hard fucking move to pull off. So he did the best he could. He basically, more or less, caught him in midair and then delivered a tombstone on the floor. So MJF starts screaming that anybody can flip. I can't flip. If I tried to flip, I'd be in the hospital right now. But he says anybody can flip, and then he went and he hit a springboard moonsault to the floor, landed on his feet. I just thought to myself, when he was having his babyface run last year, he had that match with Jay White, the match with Kenny Omega, some of the stuff that he did in those matches, like the running, leaping cutter over the top, like he was doing shit that he just should not be doing. Okay, that's why he missed 5 months. So I don't want to see MJF diving. He's too valuable to Tony Khan to be diving. Leave the dives to Will Ospreay. You don't have to show off. So he lands on his feet. Ospreay took him over with a standing Spanish fly on the floor. Then with MJF draped over the top rope, Ospreay hit a shooting star press off the top right across the back. MJF battled back with a crossroads, spiked Ospreay right on his head for a near fall. The crowd was chanting for the Tiger Driver. They wanted it. They were waiting for it. They wanted to see this Tiger Driver. Instead, Ospreay wanted Hidden Blade. MJF rolled to the apron. There was an Os-Cutter attempt. MJF avoided it. Ospreay crashed and burned on the apron. MJF then connected on a Long Island sunset on the apron and demanded that Bryce Remsburg count him out. Ospreay was able to break the count, though. So MJF teased a hidden blade of his own. Ospreay collapsed before he could hit it. He dodged a heat seeker. Then Ospreay hit a hook kick and an Os-Cutter on the apron. Will wanted a diving hidden blade off the apron. MJF dodged and Ospreay wiped out the cameraman instead. With the hidden blade, down goes Camera Boy. MJF then grabs the American title. He waffles Ospreay with it, but Ospreay kicked out on the pin attempt. MJF hit the Brain Buster, which he's been using to finish off a lot of opponents, but again, Ospreay kicked out. So MJF tried for a hidden blade. Ospreay ducked, and MJF got sent into the referee, and the referee bumps out to the floor. MJF yells for the Tiger Driver. But Ospreay spins out, wants the move himself, only for MJF to deliver a low blow. So now MJF grabs or pulls out some kind of foreign object. Almost looked like a covered pair, maybe of brass knuckles. But whatever it was, he places it on his fist, and he's about to use it when a masked man, a skinny masked man, appears on the apron, and he knocks MJF down. And then he removes the mask to reveal Daniel Garcia, who has not been seen since MJF murdered him and left him in a pool of his own blood many, many weeks ago on TV. So MJF is looking up at him with this stunned expression on his face. Ospreay takes the opportunity, the distraction, to take his head off with a hidden blade. And then Ospreay sets up for it finally. After all these months, he connects on the Tiger Driver 91. Drops MJF right on the back of his neck, folds him up. Several seconds go by before Bryce Remsburg is able to get back in the ring. And we got the dramatic, slow 3 count. Not quite Earl Hebner slow, but we got the dramatic 3 count. And Will Ospreay wins the match and regains the International Championship. After the match, Ospreay tossed the American title aside. Christopher Daniels got in the ring with a bag, and out he pulled the old International title, and he presented it to Will Ospreay, who had a big celebration. This was an outstanding match. An outstanding match, the best all night until the main event. Up to this point in the show, for sure, this was the best match. Now, whether it was better than their 60-minute match, everyone's opinion is going to differ on that. To me, it doesn't even matter. To me, they were 2 different matches. They were formatted and set up differently. They had slightly different stories. They weren't exactly the same thing. I love them both. This one, though, I like more. mainly for the finish and the fact that we got the payoff here at the end, which was so sweet. So me personally, I vote for this match, but both matches were excellent. I could not have thought of a way that Tony Khan could have booked this match any better. Between Daniel Garcia showing up to stop MJF from using the foreign object, to Ospreay using the Tiger Driver for the finish, which is what I was hoping he would do. You know, Bryan Danielson went up to him on TV on Wednesday and said, do it. Do it. He gave him permission. It's like a permission slip from Danielson to go ahead and use the move. You don't have to worry. You don't have to fear using it. You don't have to feel like you're disrespecting me. Use it. And so he did. And he used it and won the match with it. I wasn't sure if he was going to use it and then the hidden blade would kind of finish him off. No, he hit the Tiger Driver and he pinned him. And that is exactly what the finish should have been. And it was just so satisfying to see that story pay off in that way. And really the only appropriate way for it to end. Now, MJF tweeted earlier today that somebody stole his Dynamite Diamond ring and he went off on England. So he tweets that. And I'm thinking, okay, this is going to factor into the story in some way. And so maybe Daniel Garcia is going to show up and Garcia maybe is going to have the diamond ring and he's going to use it on MJF, you know, something like that. And he didn't. And not only did he not use the diamond ring, but there was no sighting of it. MJF had some other weird looking foreign object that he was using instead. So now, as I think back on this, and I'm like, well, the ring never did come into play here. And instead, they substituted the ring with some other fucking, I don't know, schlocky looking foreign object. I'm thinking maybe the ring really did get stolen. Or got lost or something happened. So I thought there was going to be some storyline reason for it. And no, I'm thinking that ring is probably gone. I think that ring is going to end up either at a pawn shop or on eBay soon. So there was no Dynamite Diamond ring. Now, a lot of people are going to come out of this, and it's only natural. You see Daniel Garcia is back, and oh, he must have re-signed, because there's been talk that his contract is coming due soon, and he was debating whether or not he wanted to stay or maybe leave and go somewhere else. And so the fact that he showed up here and he was part of this match must mean that he is re-signed with AEW. Not so fast, because Mike Johnson of PW Insider reported a few hours ago that he was told that Garcia's contract runs through October. And the two sides remain in dialogue for a potential new deal. They're still discussing it, but no new deal has been signed. And they've got him locked down for another 2 months. So this does not mean that Daniel Garcia is for sure going to stay in AEW. I tend to think he will. I honestly think that he should stay. I think this is the right place for him to be. I just don't see him going to WWE at the moment and having the kind of success that maybe some people think he might have. I don't see it. So I think AEW is going to be his home for a little while longer if I had to venture a guess. But that's still being worked out. Ospreay gets huge Wembley moment for himself. Now he goes on to All Out in 2 weeks to defend the international title against Pac. And that is going to be a fucking great match. What was not a fucking great match was this next match, which was Mercedes Mone defending the TBS Championship against Dr. Britt Baker. Mercedes was brought out on stage by palace guards in a carriage that had corgis. I think she has a corgi, but there were like multiple corgis in this carriage, so I don't know if they all belong to her or not. On the one hand, it might have been wiser for the two of them if Tony Khan had flipped it and had them go on earlier in the show in the second match and had Mariah May and Toni Storm go on later in the show, because nobody was going to be able to follow MJF and Will Ospreay in that next spot. They did a good job of it in the main event, but I mean in the very next match, it's the death spot. Like if I was going to go out there, like I had a match and I just got done watching that match that we just saw and I had to go out there next, I don't even know if I'd go out there. I just gotta throw my hands up in the air and go, you know what? I forfeit. Like there's no point. There's no point in even going out there. So I feel like they were in a no-win situation regardless. I look at it a little bit differently because I'm really glad that Toni Storm and Mariah May went on when they did so that they didn't have this problem. I don't know if the crowd would have been that much more enthusiastic. In all honesty, I just think they were wiped out after what they just saw and their big reaction to the Ospreay win. So I'm glad that the women's world title match went on earlier in the show because I think they were better off for it. Unfortunately for these two, they were not. They had a bitch of a time trying to get the people into this. But what they got the first several minutes, in all honesty, was really nothing worth going crazy for. Until Mercedes dropped Britt across the top turnbuckle. They were on the ropes, and she just dropped her with a backbreaker straight down on the top turnbuckle. So that looked brutal. And again, Britt Baker was dealing with back issues last year. She has a history of back problems. So Mercedes made the back, the lower back, the focus of her abuse here in this match. That set the tone for the rest of the match. Mercedes got the Three Amigos spot in as she does in every match. To no reaction this time. She hit an avalanche body slam. Just there on top. She just body slammed her off onto the mat. Missed the follow-up dive, though. Baker tried a curb stomp. Monet spiked her with a power bomb. Mercedes charged in, only for Britt to catch her with a cutter. Britt put on her glove. Mercedes escaped a lockjaw attempt, though. Hit a neck breaker and took the glove off. Put it on herself. And Mercedes took too long to follow up. Britt hit an air raid crash. Regained possession of the glove. I feel like we're fighting over a bracelet here, like CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. Now they're fighting over a glove. So she gets the glove back. Tried another air raid crash. Mercedes rolled through. Tried for her Monet Maker finish. Didn't get it. Mercedes wanted another avalanche body slam. Only this time Baker spun out, and it was Mercedes who got taken to the mat. It was almost like a Spanish fly, basically. Britt hit the curb stomp, went for the cover. Camille, though, placed the foot on the rope, or at least that was the idea for the spot. It looked like either she missed her cue, or maybe Mercedes did it before Camille could actually put her foot there, whatever it was. It looked a little wonky. Mercedes went to use the TBS title. Referee Paul Turner caught her and wrestled the belt away from her. Baker grabbed the IWGP Women's title away from Camille while Turner's back was turned. And then what Britt did was she tossed the belt back to Camille and took a phantom bump. So she out Eddie Guerrero'd Mercedes. Mercedes will not be happy about this. Eddie was like her idol. And so Britt out Eddied her in this match. Now, I'm watching this, and this kind of good. This is even dumber than the Hook thing, honestly, with the bandage over the eye. This was even dumber to me because the referee turns around, sees Britt on the mat, acting like she just got walloped with the championship. And so what Paul Turner does is he ejects Camille from ringside. So off she goes to the back, right? Camille's not happy. And I'm just thinking to myself, what a stupid fucking thing to do. Like, put yourself in Britt Baker's position here. You're fighting for the TBS title. You do a spot where you want the referee to think that you just got hit with a title by her bodyguard, which should be a disqualification. Now, I know we don't get too many of those in AEW, but they do exist. It wasn't like it was a no DQ match. What was stopping Paul Turner from disqualifying Mercedes? Because he thought Camille used the belt on Britt? Had he done that, yeah, Britt would have won, but not the title. I'm just talking like in kayfabe mode here. What a dumb thing for her to do. She was taking a real risk here, just assuming that the referee would only eject Camille and would not call for the disqualification. See, not all doctors are bright people. So Baker hit the Panama Sunrise, followed that with a stomp for a good near fall. She went for lockjaw. Mercedes pushed off the ropes. Baker rolled over with her, tried to apply the hold. Mercedes bit her hand. And then Mercedes kind of ragdolled her face into the top rope and then hit her with the Monet Maker and pinned her to retain the TBS title. I'm not saying they didn't work hard. They did some big spots, especially on the ropes. and Britt took some abuse, with some of those spots to the lower back. They worked hard, but this didn't really start to get good until the final few minutes. Just an underwhelming match that was hurt also, I think, by how long they went. This did not need to go 17 minutes. Now, I understand that Mercedes, big star in the women's division. Britt, also one of the biggest stars they have in the company and in the women's division. First time ever match. It should have felt like a bigger deal, and it really didn't. It felt like a bigger deal to see Toni and Mariah face-to-face in the ring than it did seeing Britt and Mercedes face-to-face in the ring. So I know that conceptually, they envisioned this, I think, being bigger than it really ended up being, and they wanted to give it plenty of time. As things turned out, especially with the dead crowd for a good chunk of the match, this actually was hurt by the fact that it went 17 minutes. This honestly should not have gone longer than maybe 11 or 12. So I think the length of the match actually hurt it as well. This would have been a great spot for Jamie Hayter to make her return instead of what they did on the pre-show, but obviously, for whatever reason, Jamie is not going to be a part of this story. And we could speculate on why that is. We can, hear these reports and try to put two and two together. People will come up with what they think the reasons are. Maybe one day we'll find out. But under the best of circumstances, this right here, post-match, Camille would not have been ejected. Britt would have lost. There would have been a 2-on-1 beatdown. And then Jamie would have come out to make the save for Britt Baker. Fight off Camille, fight off Mercedes, set up a tag team match, maybe in 2 weeks in Chicago at All Out. Ideally, that's how this would have played out. Didn't work out that way. I'm still very glad to see Jamie Hayter back. It's just too bad that she couldn't get more of a prime spot, on the main card. We went from that to a coffin match for the TNT Championship with Jack Perry defending against the former champion, Darby Allin. Unlike the previous match, this one went the opposite way and actually felt like it wasn't long enough because these two went out there and had a surprisingly short match. At least they didn't overstay their welcome. They went in and they got right out because this thing, I don't think this went much longer than 10 minutes. Darby skateboarded to the ring with thumbtacks stuck in his face. Fucking guys out there looking like Pinhead. Darby hit a running dive right from the bell, beat the hell out of Perry with a chair. Jack tried throwing punches, messed his own hand up because of all the tacks that were sticking out of Darby's, or whatever the hell was sticking out of Darby's face. Darby placed Perry up against the coffin, which was standing up on the outside. Darby then tried for a suicide dive. Jack moved out of the way, and Darby collided into the coffin. Knocked the coffin over, knocked himself probably into the next world. Perry emptied a bag in the ring, and the bag was filled with broken shards of glass. And the crowd went wild. He just, Jack stood there, glass at his feet, arms outstretched. Everybody in the stadium was going crazy. And I just thought, thanks. I hate it. I hate it. Not a fan of glass. Real or otherwise. Darby hit a slam onto the glass, which sliced open Perry's back and I think part of his arm. Taz mentioned that this isn't the first time that Jack has bumped on glass at Wembley. Haha. Darby went up top. Perry swept the legs out, pulled tape out from under the ring, and taped Darby's wrists. Darby was also bleeding, but still managed a coffin drop to the floor. So both men fought up the ramp, and Perry whipped Darby with his own belt, tied his feet up, and then Jack threw him off the stage, through some tables down below. He was kind of like off to the side of the ramp. Picture the spot in the main event of WrestleMania this year, when Jay speared Jimmy off the ramp down through some tables. Basically, that's what this was. So Jack then brought a body bag over to Darby, zipped him up inside of it before dragging him to the coffin, which is down by the foot of the aisleway, down by ringside. Placed him inside the coffin. Darby then sat up like a zombie. His body was in the body bag. His head was sticking out. And so as he's trying to wiggle his way over the casket to get out of it, Jack comes charging in with a running knee strike, that knocks him back into the coffin. He spits on him. A lot of spitting on this show. And then he closes the casket to retain the TNT title. After the match, the Young Bucks walk down to the ring with a gas can. And they're outside the ring, and Jack lifts up the lid. Nick pours gasoline all over Darby. Jack lights the lighter. He's going to give this fucker the same treatment that he gave him in the Anarchy in the Arena match when Darby set Jack on fire. He's going to return the favor when the lights go out. So it goes dark here in Wembley. And then we hear Seek and Destroy. Out comes Sting, who we just saw have his great retirement, this great send-off for him at Revolution in March. Sting is back. He's got his trucker jacket on, comes down to the ring, full face paint, he's got the baseball bat. He wasn't running to the ring, but yeah, he wasn't walking too slowly. He was marching down to the ring. In that time that it took for him to get to the ring, they could have easily set Darby on fire. The fire probably would have already been extinguished by the time Sting got to the ring, and he would have had barbecue Darby. But of course, they see Sting coming, so they didn't set him on fire. Sting gets into the ring. The Bucks charged at him. They ate baseball bat shots. Jack blasted Sting in the back with a chair. When will they ever learn? You don't hit Sting with a chair. How many times have we seen Sting take a chair shot and no sell it? How many times have we seen Sting got put through a table by FTR and no sold it? It popped right back up. It doesn't work. So he turned around and Jack ran for his life. That left the Bucks in the ring to eat a double scorpion death drop. Sting drops them both. Goes outside, opens the coffin. He helps free Darby, and then father and son leave together. So it was nice to see Sting. I did see a picture. I saw Sting's son, the one who is training with Darby and literally living in, I think, a shack outside of Darby's house while he is training to become a pro wrestler. He was the one who played Wolfpack Sting in Sting's retirement match, the really athletic-looking one, the one who played football. I saw a picture. I know he was there. He was in London. And I don't know. I didn't really think anything of it. I guess maybe I thought, I wonder if Sting might be there, but it was still a surprise, and I was surprised to see him on the show. Just because he retired from the ring doesn't mean he can't come back and do spots. I just didn't expect him to be back this soon. After all the pomp and circumstance about his retirement in March, I didn't expect him to be back doing scorpion death drops in the ring in August. So, look, you know how these wrestling retirements go, right? It's just hard, man. It's hard. It's hard to keep away. But I don't mind seeing Sting come back and do a scorpion death drop or two every now and then, or hit people with a baseball bat. That's fine with me. And then that brought us to the main event of the evening. Title versus career. With Bryan Danielson challenging Swerve Strickland for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. Jim Ross joined on commentary. JR's had a rough go of it health-wise recently, so good to see that he made the trip, and he sounded okay on commentary. He wasn't at peak energy like he was the last time we heard him on commentary a few months ago. I think that might have been Forbidden Door. But it was good to see him there. So I was wondering, would Tony Khan shell out the money to have the final countdown for Bryan Danielson in what could very well have ended up being his final match? The answer is yes. So out he comes to Final Countdown, which is only appropriate. I'm happy he shelled out the money for it this time. Given what, this match, the way it was built up and the way that the finish went down, and him getting this big stadium moment. It was very cool that he was able to get that with that music. So he comes out, and they show in the front row Brie Mode on the show. Brie Bella's in the front row with their two kids, little Buddy and little Birdie. Triple B. In the front row to watch Bryan Danielson challenge for the championship. DJ Woo Kid asks the crowd whose house. Prince Nana comes out. He waves Swerve out onto the stage and placed the Jimmy Rave Embassy jacket on him while they wrapped Swerve to the ring. So right at the beginning here, Swerve glances over at Buddy and Birdie and Bree. in the front row. That lit a fire under Danielson. Early in the match, Danielson's leg accidentally clipped referee Paul Turner, and that led to Prince Nana placing the ring bell on the apron, and Swerve delivered a Death Valley driver to Danielson on the apron onto the ring bell. So Danielson then falls to the floor, and it opened him up because when they cut back to him, he was bleeding. Now remember, one of the reasons that Danielson left WWE to come to AEW in the first place is he wanted to bleed. True story. He wanted to bleed. So you had to know that in a match like this, big match like this, he was going to bleed. So he bled. Swerve dragged Danielson over to where his family was sitting. They're right there in the front row. Little Bree and not Little Bree, but well, Bree is kind of little. Little Bree, Buddy, and Birdie in the front row. Swerve begins to stomp Bryan Danielson's brains in. Right in front of his children. And he's bleeding too. So now there's like a puddle of blood underneath, where his head was. And I'm watching this and I'm like, people think Hangman is the bad guy here? What is wrong with people? This is a man who broke into his home and threatened his family. Hangman's family now is just in shambles. He had to move out of his home. Now this man is stomping this man's brains in front of his family. But Hangman is supposed to be the bad guy here. So now Bryan's kids are crying. They got their head in their hands, and Nana is doing a dance right in front of them. He's doing the Nana dance in front of the crying kids. Strickland brings Danielson to the ropes, hits an avalanche angle slam as Birdie was shown hiding her eyes. They would cut back and forth occasionally to the family. Strickland tried a swerve stomp. Danielson avoided it into the regal stretch. Strickland broke free. And Bryan turned him inside out with a wild lariat. Both men went up top. Danielson then took Swerve backwards, all the way down with an avalanche tiger driver. Which, man, I'm just watching it. I'm not even the one on the top rope taking the move. And I'm watching that. And when you got your arms tied behind you like that, and you're going backwards, that's fucking scary. And he landed hard on his shoulder, too, on the landing. So Danielson said it was time to kick his head in, and he did just that before sinking in cattle mutilation. Strickland bridged up, countered into a vertebraker, which looked as safe as a vertebraker could possibly be. But the referee immediately rushed over. The match basically stopped at this point and froze for a couple of minutes. Paul Turner called in the doctors, and they sold it big like Danielson might be hurt. So Strickland chased them away and hit a swerve stomp, but Danielson kicked out. Multiple house call kicks followed. As Danielson was reaching out to his family, he was telling them, "I'm sorry." The blood is just painting his forehead like the canvas of a Rembrandt painting. Strickland hits another house call for a close 2 count, which the crowd went nuts for. And on commentary, Excalibur questions if he was apologizing, if Danielson was apologizing for what he has put his family through, or if he was apologizing for what he is about to do. Strickland tried the yes kicks. After each one, Danielson hulked up. They had no effect. He's hulking up. He tells his family he loves them. These fans were going nuts for this. Danielson slapped Strickland hard across the face, lit him up with yes kicks, sank in a triangle choke, started dropping anvil elbows. Strickland powered out. Danielson hit a suplex that dropped Swerve right on his head. And then the Busaiku knee connects. And Swerve Strickland no-sells. Not only does he no-sell the running knee, he brushes it off like he saw a fucking bug on his chest. And he just brushes it off. Danielson can't believe it. Instead, Swerve hits another house call kick. So Strickland now is smiling at Danielson's family. And then he hits big pressure. But Danielson kicks out. And the fans are on their feet. That is the first time that anybody in AEW has ever kicked out of the JML driver. Strickland mocked the yes chant, put his fingers up, He was setting up for something when there was a commotion. You could see behind him on the floor in the background, there was a commotion. Security rushed over. Looked like a fan maybe got, over the barricade. It wasn't a fan. It was Hangman, who's even more unhinged now after not winning the Casino Gauntlet match earlier. So he's trying to get through, and they're blocking him, and they're trying to restrain him. And somebody in the chat, before I went live, mentioned Bret Hart running out during the WrestleMania 13 main event. And that's true. It was very similar. Because if you remember, towards the end of the main event between Psycho Sid and The Undertaker, Bret Hart, who actually tried, to get involved at the very beginning and got powerbombed before the match even started, Bret tried running back out during the match and actually caused a distraction that caused Sid to get tombstoned and pinned. So that's the one big difference here, is that had this little distraction here caused Swerve directly to lose the match, then yes, but that's actually not what happened here, thankfully. And this was a much better match than that. So Hangman is throwing security geeks down to the floor. He sends Prince Nana down to the floor. More security now. Swarm Hangman, and they get him out of there. He never hits the ring. He never touches Swerve. But Swerve is distracted. He sees this. He sees what's going on, outside the ring. And not realizing that Bryan Danielson is setting up for the Busaiku knee. He turns around right into the knee. He covers Swerve and he kicks out. That was the best near fall of the entire match because it was the most convincing near fall. They got me. They got me on that. Now, if Danielson was not going to win the match by pinfall, that's fine, which he ended up winning by submission. If he was going to win the match by pinfall, that should have been where it happened. But because they had a different finish in mind, the match did not end there. And I like it also because it would have been kind of cheap if the only reason Swerve lost this match was because of Hangman. So I'm glad it didn't go down that way. Both men trade forearms. That turned into headbutts after a while. Strickland tried a rolling flatliner, but as he rolled through, Danielson caught him with another Busaiku knee. The yes chants rang out, and we had the visual here of 50,000 plus in Wembley Stadium throwing their hands up in the air as the camera panned out. This great crowd shot. Danielson sinks in the label lock. Strickland tries to break free. Danielson snaps the fingers, locks the hold back on, this time with the arm trapped, and Swerve taps out. Everybody loses their minds because we have a brand new AEW World Heavyweight Champion. Claudio, Wheeler, Yuta, and Pac, they all make their way down to the ring. They help Danielson's family over the barricade, and he celebrates in the ring with his wife, his son, and his daughter. Confetti raining down upon them to the tune of Final Countdown. Birdie is shown holding the AEW World title. Buddy is just dancing in the confetti, dancing around as Pyro goes off. One of the best closing scenes that you will ever see. As someone who was there for Bryan's WrestleMania win 10 years ago, it's one of the greatest moments I've ever been a part of at a wrestling show. And I'm sad that I wasn't there for this. Because when you're there in that moment, it really is a special thing. And this was a moment. This is why Tony Khan booked Bryan Danielson in the main event of this show. He wanted that moment. He wanted Danielson to have that moment. And I'm sure for the people who were actually there at the stadium as the confetti rained down and everybody was going nuts and chanting yes, it was a special moment. I remember when that show was over in New Orleans, we left the Superdome, not the Silver Dome, brother. We left the Superdome and we were on Bourbon Street. I'll never forget it. Everybody was going nuts. It was one big party on Bourbon Street. And you had all these people, midnight, 1 a.m., whatever it was, and they're chanting yes, and they're doing all kinds of chants. It was a happening. And for him to have another moment like that 10 years later, like this, as his full-time career now is winding down in these next couple of months, this was very special. This was very special. For my money, not only was this a match of the year contender, this was a 5-star match right here. Everything I look for in a match, People call me crazy when, or some people called me crazy when I said that Rock Hogan won at WrestleMania was a 5-star match. They're like, oh, Meltzer gave it 3 stars. I don't give a fuck what Meltzer gave it. Who gives a fuck? For me, it was a 5-star match. How do you judge that? I don't know. Just a feeling I have. This match for me had everything. It had action. It had drama. It had storytelling. You had the family with the kids in the front row and the cuts, back and forth to their reactions. It had a great crowd, hot crowd, Hangman coming out, still obsessed with this man, obsessed with Swerve and trying to screw him over and screw him out of the championship that he holds, but not being successful in doing so. But being successful enough that Swerve can come out now on TV this week and he can say that were it not for you coming out and distracting me, maybe right now I would still be the AEW World Heavyweight Champion. So, he didn't directly cost him the title, but he could still come out and make the argument that, you know what? I took my eye off the ball because of you. And so you played a part in what happened to me. And now he's going to want to get his revenge. And maybe we'll get Hangman and Swerve it all out in 2 weeks. There won't be a title on the line, but that should be the match, I think, coming out of this. Danielson now officially part of the AEW World title lineage, which I'm sure Tony Khan wanted. Now he's got a match with Darby Allin coming up at Grand Slam on the 25th of September. He's got a match possibly with Christian Cage because Christian's got a world championship match in his back pocket that he can cash in whenever he's good and ready. Or, maybe that match happens at All Out in 2 weeks. Rematch with Swerve? I hope so. I hope that we get that rematch, maybe at Wrestle Dream in Tacoma on October 12th. Both of them are from the Pacific Northwest. I'm sure they would both be super over in the building that night, and perhaps he'll drop the belt back, maybe even to Swerve. Or maybe we have a 3-way match out of it. Maybe we end up with Danielson and Swerve and Hangman. Maybe Hangman wins the championship, and then Swerve has to chase Hangman for it. There's any number of ways they can go with this, but this main event was outstanding. The MJF Will Ospreay match was outstanding. I would use that word to describe both of those matches. And it's rare that you get 2 matches like that on the same show. But we had that here. I love the Women's World Championship match. And then as far as the rest of the card, again, the ladder match, I think, was exactly what you would expect out of a match like that. Some people are fans of it. Some people aren't. But I thought, that was fine. That was good. The Coffin match, definitely on the shorter side, but again, good for what it was. The TBS title match, very underwhelming. Not a huge fan of that match. Tag team title match, it was fine. Not a huge fan of that match. Loved the Casino Gauntlet, had a lot of fun with it. So, it's a mix of different things up and down the card, nothing horrendously bad. Even the FTW title match was, fun for what it was. I'm just more happy the whole fucking thing is over. But we had that nice moment with Hook and Taz at the end. On the whole, though, I had a lot of fun with this show. I thought it was an excellent show on the whole. But that main event will go down. It's going to be in the conversation for sure for one of the best matches of 2024. And whatever happens with Bryan Danielson, however many more weeks or months he continues to wrestle and defend the title, it might be a short run. I'm not expecting him to have a long run. But whatever we get out of it, he will be able to say that he was a world champion both in WWE and AEW and Ring of Honor. Now he's got to go win the IWGP. I want Danielson to be a part of that lineage. I want him to be an IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. That's what I'd like to see. I don't know that that's going to happen. Let's take a look at the Twitter poll. What did you think of AEW All In London? 85% thumbs up and 14% thumbs down, with nearly 2,000 votes in and counting. It's a hell of a score. Well deserved. And I'm sure it'll fluctuate a little bit. But you can go ahead and vote at Solomonster on X. Let me know what you thought of All In. 85%. That's the highest AEW poll I've seen in a very long time. Even the bots this time are like, oh man, I got to give this show a thumbs up. Even the bots. There's no way around it. All right. Let me go through your messages here. Thank you for everybody who has dropped a dono. I appreciate it. It's been a very slow month. The work certainly hasn't stopped, but it's been a slow month. So for those of you who do support, I want to say sincerely, thank you very much. It means a lot. I got that podcast done yesterday, episode 876. Was hoping to actually see my friends yesterday. That was the plan. I was going to do the show and then go, and the show went long, so I didn't get the chance to do much of anything this weekend. So make sure you go listen to that show. Jerome, let's start with Jerome here. We got Jerome Eugenio. Jerome, good to hear from you, my friend. Let me scroll back here. You're not going to see yours because yours came in early. Let's start with you, though. We'll be listening to the review later. Hope you enjoy All In. Well, I did. And I hope you enjoy this review when you get to it. Big Show's ladder. I don't watch AEW that often. I'm not joking when I say this. Up until 2 hours ago, I thought Jamie Hayter and Blair Davenport were the same person. I thought she left and had a name change. Well, she didn't. She definitely did not. They are, in fact, two different people. And no offense to Blair Davenport, but she ain't no Jamie Hayter. So they are definitely two different people. The Real CS, I think the grizzled young veteran showing up all but confirms the Motor City Machine Guns are WWE bound. In fact, I think that fact that AEW wants to FTR again should have been a clear sign they were WWE. I don't know what that means, but yes, I believe Motor City Machine Guns are WWE bound. Also, he says, because they signed, I believe it would have been them against the Bucks at Wembley. Oh, you're saying the Machine Guns against the Bucks at Wembley? See, I thought that the Machine Guns would have come out to confront them. But you're saying you think it would have been the Machine Guns and them at Wembley. Yeah, it's possible. House of Has. A great show and excellent in-ring storytelling. Danielson and Ospreay stood out, but a bit disappointed that Jamie Hayter's return was not on the main show with the TBS Championship. Yeah, that was a little disappointing, but again, I'm just happy she's back. Fire Panda, thank you, Fire Panda. If I had to sum up any Bryan Danielson match, it would be like this. Real Graps, Cry Me a River. It was a very emotional finish to the show. It was a tearjerker. LC Killer, I am not impressed with All In this year. That's from LC Killer 17. Our old friend My Cock Hurts is back. Britt Baker, worst performance all year. Not her best match. Ruben dropping some super chat love. Ruben, thank you. Now that I say that, I'm getting very hungry. I would like to have dinner soon. Jeremy Rose with the 12. Other than giving Bryan Danielson his Wembley moment and Tony Khan getting his favorite wrestler the AEW title, I thought he wanted to retire, so I don't get him beating Swerve, who is one of the future stars of AEW. Swerve is not a future star of AEW. Swerve he's a star right now. He is not a future star. Swerve is a star right now as we speak, and he will continue to be. Just because he lost here does not mean he's not going to get the belt back. So don't worry about it. Swerve is going to be just fine. I'm confident that Swerve is going to be just fine. And he must be too, which is why he signed that new contract. So I think he's going to be fine. Jeremy says, what is next? Does Bryan Danielson retire or have a long reign? Bryan Danielson, I think, will hold the belt for a month or two. He'll drop it, and that'll be the end of that. And then Bryan Danielson at that point will settle into a career of part-time work, and he'll spend more time with Buddy and Birdie and Bree. Smoking Dried Chicken. Finally, Bryan Danielson is a champion. in All Elite Wrestling. Yes, he is. Brother Fluff Salisbury just showing some love to the Solo Side squad. Smoking Dry Chicken says, big shout out to Swerve Strickland for putting in the work with the AEW World title. That man deserves praise and his flowers. I've been giving it to him. I said this just the other day. In fact, I think that you're going to have people who are like, oh, they did Swerve dirty. They buried him. Because people throw these words around. They don't know what they mean. Swerve beat Samoa Joe to win that title. Let's back up even more, okay? Swerve's run can be traced all the way back to Wrestle Dream last year. That first win over Hangman Page changed his career. He went into Full Gear, had the most violent match I've ever seen with Hangman and beat him again at Full Gear. He beat Samoa Joe in April to win the world title. He beat Christian at Double or Nothing. He was the first man to hand Will Ospreay a loss since he signed with AEW at Forbidden Door. He led his team to victory in Blood and Guts. And he just headlined the second biggest show in the history of AEW against one of the greatest of all time. And had a 5-star match that people are going to be talking about for weeks. Best match of the night. Now he's going to move on to continue the feud with Hangman. And I think he'll end up winning the belt back. And frankly, even if he doesn't win the belt back right away, as long as he's in that top mix and he's being featured on TV, he's in a much better spot than some people on that roster. So I would not panic. I would not panic yet. I would not worry about Swerve. I think he's going to be fine. And yes, I think he deserves flowers for having what I thought was actually a pretty good run this year when you consider the names that he worked with and beat. Not going to tell you it was the best world championship run that I've ever seen. But I also think that people, in some cases, are shitting on it and shitting on it in a way that tells me they either weren't paying attention or, again, they're just panicking for no reason because they think that's it. It's all over now for him. It's not. He's going to be fine. Trust me. He's going to be fine. Ruben, overall great show. Love your work. Thank you, Ruben. The main match was absolutely wild in the stadium. What was your favorite? Main event, Bryan Danielson, Swerve Strickland. Best match of the night. Close number 2, MJF and Will Ospreay. You know you had a great match when your match tops Will Ospreay's match, because Will Ospreay is just on another level from everybody. Bell to bell in the ring. As far as wrestler of the year so far, best wrestler in the world, I mean, it's Will Ospreay. So you go out there and have a better match than him, you've done something right. Oz and Glorious absolutely loved the show, top to bottom, except the god-awful Daniel Garcia making an appearance and washed Britt Baker's sandbagging. Tony Khan was not fucking around today. No, Tony Khan had a great show. He should be very proud of the show. And yes, Oz says, hit that like button. Scody Clash, how do you say disciplined as it's something how do you stay disciplined as it is something I struggle with? Been dealing with inner demons and want to become the best I can be. You are an inspiration. Well, Scody, thank you for that. Thank you for the support. How do I stay disciplined? I'm not always disciplined. It's hard. It's hard. And I think everybody to some degree deals with that. But the best thing I could say to you is you got to just do your best to tune that out, man. I know easier said than done, but you just got to dig down deep and tune it out. You don't have to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. Kurt Hennig wasn't perfect. But you got to do it. And you're going to be fine. Trust me. Adon. Or Adoni 96. In your opinion, which run was more unbearable? Triple H from 2002 to 2005 or John Cena from 2009 to 2012? For me, I probably would go Triple H. Most of that run was just poison for me. I just thought it was boring. Power Spying Games on the train home. What a day. 2024 is better than 2023. Are you talking about the whole year, or are you talking about All In? Because I would agree. Chris Perry, where do you rank Swerve's title reign? Top 3 or bottom 3 in AEW? I don't know where I rank it. I don't know. I wouldn't put it in the top 3. I wouldn't put it in the top 3. That doesn't mean it was a bad run. Natasha with the $12. Celebrating Chris Jericho losing. And last Sunday, my son finished his story and met Cody at the mess that was Fanatics Fest. Also very happy that Will Ospreay is now a champion. Well, Natasha, you and I will both celebrate the end of the Chris Jericho FTW title run. And I'm glad that your son got to meet Cody. A lot of people didn't. A lot of people complained they didn't get a chance to meet Cody. The whole thing was a disorganized mess. Hopefully they'll do better next year. So I'm sure there'll be more of these. So consider yourself lucky, because there were a lot of people complaining that they waited in line for hours and they didn't get a chance to meet him or Rhea and some of the other people. So I'm glad he got to meet Cody. And everything I've seen and heard as far as Cody and his interactions with people and kids is just top notch. Cody's a great dude. Power Spying Games. Also, the welcome party yesterday was great. I met a few AEW talent, including Mariah May. They clearly learned from the mistakes of last year's party. Hopefully Fanatics Fest will do the same. See, you learn from your experiences. Joey Jojo Jr. woke up at 3 a.m. for All In. It was worth it. You're a better man than I am, because I wouldn't do that. Smoking Dried Chicken says he has been hard and critical of AEW in the past. I never want AEW to fail. I need them to be better on and off camera. I think that's what we all hope for. You know, you want them to do their best. They have an incredible roster of talent. Sometimes the creative doesn't support that. So I think we're all hoping for the same thing. Superman Bassfisher, nice to see Danielson win a championship.
I am the learning tree.
Hey, Jeremy.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for the 12. Another learning tree. Jermaine Blackwood with the $6. Back in my hotel from All In London, crowd was unhappy with the flat and abrupt endings to the TBS, Coffin, and Gauntlet matches. Swerve all-out rematch. Wings. No, I don't see Swerve getting the rematch at All Out. I mean, it's possible, but I wouldn't do that. Because I think if we get a rematch with Swerve and Danielson, Swerve's got to win. I mean, what's the point of taking the belt off Danielson in 2 weeks? You may as well let him go until Wrestle Dream. Give him a month, 6 weeks. I mean, again, Swerve, I think he was born in Tacoma, and Danielson is from Aberdeen. They're both going to be super over. So you're going to have an incredible atmosphere. I would save the match for October. Give Danielson a little run. I'm intrigued by Danielson and I said this a few weeks ago. Danielson and Darby at Grand Slam. It's just such a styles clash that I'm intrigued by that. So I hope that Danielson is still champion come September 25th, so we can get that match. Smoking Dried Chicken. Instead of using the shoe, why didn't Timeless Toni give Mariah May the Hawk Tua? She did. Did you not see? She spat on her during the match. She spat at Luther and she spat on Toni. Surprised she didn't spit on her mother. Jazz Jackrabbit, great pay-per-view and great review. Can't wait for Christian's Patriarchy promos on Bryan Danielson being a father. Oh, I didn't realize that. And Danielson's father is dead. Oh, man. Will miss seeing Swerve as champion. Thought he was great. He was. And honestly, whenever I would see him with that belt, it just fits so perfectly. But he'll get it back. I think he'll get it back. Superman Bassfisher. I thought they were apples from the learning tree. When he spilled them out at first, I thought they were apples as well. That's the first thing I thought. I thought they were apples, and then they're like, no, it's cricket balls. Like, all right, I'll take your word for it. The Learning Sicko, oh, we almost missed one. Smoking Dried Chicken said, I bet the What Culture and Wrestle Talk crew must be celebrating after MJF's loss to Will Ospreay. I did see how he treated them during his interview there, but he treats everybody like that. He didn't treat me like that when I interviewed him. The Learning Sicko, for the rest of this year at least, don't want to see FTR and the Bucks in the same ring again. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I think we could put a lid on that for a while. Justin G, why has Tony Khan and the Young Bucks lowered FTR into a concrete pit? Oh, I don't know. The way that Dax has gone off on social media over the past several months, I think he's kind of lowered himself into the pit. Jermaine Blackwood, I was at Collision in Cardiff. Big Bill was the most over star of the night. The TV did not do it justice. Noise was insane. Can you see a singles title push? No, I don't see a singles title push in the near term. I hope to see a singles push. Capitalize on it. I mean, he may not get those reactions back home, but I think they could try to manifest something and, you know, give him a real push. And I don't mean just standing behind Jericho. You know what would get him over as a super babyface? If he fucking murders Jericho. I want to see Big Bill go out on TV and absolutely murder this man. And then Jericho disappears for months and Big Bill goes on to just get a nice big push. That's what I'd like to see. Oz and Glorious, thank you, Mariah, for reviving Nigel's career with one kiss. You know what? I didn't think about that. Maybe we have her to thank for that. Arabian Night, buy or sell WrestleMania 40 or All In 2024. Choose with call. I don't want to choose, man. I enjoyed both shows. And it's you can't really compare because it's 2 nights instead of one. So you add up the number of matches at WrestleMania, and it probably, I would imagine, it dwarfs All In. Maybe not, if you count the pre-show. So it's 2 different things, man. It's 2 nights against 1 night. The WrestleMania 40 main event I thought was an all-timer. The All In main event was an all-timer. I will say this. I don't think that there were any 2 matches on the WrestleMania card that were as outstanding as the 1-2 punch that we got with the MJF match and the Danielson match on this show. Meaning that there were no 2 matches on that show either night combined that were both outstanding in the way that these were. The main event of WrestleMania, I thought night 2 was outstanding. Although it's a very different kind of match. But these 2 here, just as matches go, I don't think there's been a show all year that had 2 matches on one show as great as these 2 matches we got tonight. So, make of that what you will. Oh, it's Give Me Back Shot, Solomonster. Both AEW and pay-per-view have been having great years with, I think he meant WWE. Both AEW and pay-per-view have been having great years with pay-per-views. Okay. I still think NXT Heatwave, surprisingly, is still the best one out of both WWE and AEW. Okay. Power Spying Games, no one cared for Britt and Monet. People went to the bathroom. Some people may have gone to the bathroom and never left their seat. Jazz Jackrabbit, friend and I, not that I'm not saying that was me. Jazz Jackrabbit, friend and I were talking about how far Nick Wayne has come with his persona. It's great. Also, what do you think Tony Khan should be doing with OC? He's aimless. I don't really care. I mean, that might sound harsh, but Orange Cassidy has been protected largely and pushed pretty hard his entire time in AEW. And my interest right now lies in other people. My interest doesn't really so much lie in him. The thing with him, and it would kill his entire gimmick, I would love to see him just do a complete 180. Maybe one day we'll get to see it, where he goes heel and he's not he doesn't act in the same way that he does now. He's more of a normal person. It's almost like a bizarro version of Orange Cassidy. I don't think they're ready for that, though. Power Spying Games. Power Spying Games says, I knew Bun B was in London. A Twitter mutual bumped into him earlier, but I marked out when I saw him rapping next to Swerve with West Side Gun. Okay. Bun B. I don't know who Bun B is, but I guess he's a rapper. That's cool. I know West Side Gun. I don't know Bun B. Is that like Grandmaster B? From Married with Children? Remember Grandmaster B? We've got Ken. I'll just call you Ken. I Solo just came back from Wembley. All In was definitely better than last year. Hope you have a good rest of the weekend. Thank you, Ken. I'm glad you enjoyed the show. And I wasn't there, but I had fun with it. I'm glad you did. Trey Jones, thanks for the quality content. Solid title run for Swerve, I think. A match of the year contender at the biggest show of the year ain't a bad way to go out. No, it's not. No, it is not. Now, everyone's remembering all the different nicknames they gave poor Bud when he was Grandmaster. He was going through his Grandmaster B phase. Remember they all called him different things like Grasshopper B, Gas Passer B, Grand Marshal B. There were some other ones too. I wish I could remember all of them. Ghostbuster B. That was another one. They called him Ghostbuster B. Jeremy Rose. I know Swerve is an AEW star now. I'm saying, is he the future of AEW, as in he's going to be their number one star for the foreseeable future since he signed a new contract? It's like Cena beating Gunther. Well, is he going to be the face of the company? No, that's going to be Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay is more over than Swerve Strickland is, and he's a better babyface, and he's going to be the face of that company. Swerve being number 2 or being 1B, let's say, to Ospreay's 1A. Again, it's not a bad spot to be. But Swerve, no. If you're gonna base this on whether or not Swerve is the number one guy, if he is to AEW, for example, what Cody Rhodes is to WWE, or what Roman Reigns is or was to WWE, or John Cena used to be to WWE, then you're gonna be very disappointed, because I don't think Swerve is going to be that, but I do think he's going to be a top guy in the mix, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. He finally broke out. I'm okay with that. The Real CS. I think the Motor City Machine Guns dodged a bullet by reportedly choosing WWE over AEW. I don't think even they could have saved the tag team division. I'm glad they did too. Well, if they did, I'm glad they did. I really want to see what they can do in WWE. I think they'll end up in NXT first, but it's just one of those things I never expected that we'd even be talking about, the Machine Guns being back together and ending up in WWE. It's like Okada. I would have been very intrigued to see how Triple H would have booked Okada had he gone to WWE. Maybe one day we'll find out. You know, today was not that day. Machine Guns going to WWE intrigues me a lot more than them going to AEW. Ross Lawman. I introduced some people on the train from London to your channel. They said you sound like you're from New Jersey. I told them that you're from New York City. Even I know that's an insult. We'll re-listen to the review properly tomorrow. So there are people in the UK who think I sound like I'm from Jersey? I don't sound like I'm from Jersey. Why would you think that? That is an insult, by the way. I'm very insulted. I was going to visit England too, and now I have no interest. Because now I just think all people are going to think as I'm going around London, seeing the sights, are that, hey, that guy's from New Jersey. I can't have that. I just can't have people thinking I'm from New Jersey. That's unacceptable. Lombardi Lee. Thank you for the $9.99. No message. Thank you, Lombardi. Alex with the 10. Happy Sunday. Do you think the Bryan Danielson Swerve match had more vehemence and emotion? I love vehemence. Is that even a word? Vehemence? And emotion than the Cody and Dustin Double or Nothing match. Which match did you enjoy more? I don't know. I mean, again, I enjoyed that. I was there for that one. There was a lot of emotion in the building that night for those two. So, emotion-wise, I'd probably say Cody and Dustin, but this was pretty freaking emotional too, on, a storytelling level. So I loved them both. Cody and Dustin, for me, I think in many ways, is a 5-star match. So is this. Mikey S. 13. Listen to the podcast, and it was great as always. Just wanted to add that another great theme was Sean O'Hare's Waterproof Blonde theme from 2003. Yeah, that was one of the questions in the mailbag on the podcast. My top 5 entrance themes. So if you want to know what they are, they're on the pod. Gotta check them out. Roddy Too Good. Is it me or does Swerve give me 2000s Triple H vibes at any time he can switch to heel? Well, 2000s Triple H was like year 2000 Triple H, and early 2001 Triple H was great. So I'd be delighted if I were Swerve being compared to that version of Triple H. Yeah, he can switch on a dime, man. I mean, he could be a heel, he could be a babyface. He's very versatile in that way. Boney, good to see Jericho drop the FTW title. It was holding him back, and now the learning tree can go after the trios titles and take over that division. Oh my God. Why are you giving them ideas? Power Spine Games, people went to the bathroom when Jericho came out. I brought my Game Boy Advance and played Yoshi's Island. Also, Bun B was one half of the rap duo Ugged. Or UGK. Maybe it's not meant to be. Maybe it's not meant to be said that way. UGK? I have no idea. WWF WWE fan. You and Greg, aka Good Mic Work, should do a pay-per-view review together. I love the video you guys did not too long ago. Yeah, that was for WrestleMania season. He had me on to do a Bret Hart WrestleMania match countdown. That was fun. Greg's a good guy. But, again, he's got his recaps. I got my recaps. Probably not a joint recap, but I'm sure at some point in the future we'll get together and do something else. Andre Johnson going to the Go Home Dynamite and All Out. Can't wait. Andre, have fun, man. Have fun. UGK Underground Kings. Okay. And WWF fan, there's a typo in my last message, but you and Greg should do another video. I did understand it, though. That's nothing compared to some of the other typos I get. But brother, thank you for the love, man. Thank you for the super chats. I appreciate Solomonster ain't for the culture. I'm always for the culture, man. I just need to learn, man. I just need people to teach me. Nobody wants to teach me. More of a rapper's delight kind of guy. Anyway, thank you for the support. We are currently sitting at 708 likes, which is awesome. Keep it up. Let's shoot for 750. Let's be the booker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the booker.
Let's do it, baby. Let's do it. We smashed the goal. You know what happens now. We get to take this for a spin. What's that you say? I say take that for a spin, which is what we're going to do right now as we be the booker, and we begin with Akam and Razar. We begin with the authors of Pain, AOP, the final testicles. Yes. And AOP is going to be getting into the RING with the NORTH. It is the North, Josh Alexander and Ethan Page, who were a very good team, as you can see, former Impact Tag Team Champions, but the North against Akam and Razar, it's just not a match that I like. Sorry. That don't work for me. That might work out there in Jersey. That don't work here in New York. Women's Be the Booker. Let's go, let's go, let's go. We begin with Ty Conti, who has not yet returned. She had a kid. Her and Sammy Guevara did. She has not yet made her return to the ring, but she has made her return here to be the Booker. So Ty Conti is going to be getting into the ring with Shotzi. You know, it's a real shame after such a great pay-per-view. We're not headed towards a very good outcome here in this edition of Be the Booker. This is not going the way that I had hoped that it might go. Instant buzz. But guys, my finger was on the button early for that one. All right, main event time. Here we go. Come on, man. We need one. We need one for such a fun show. Come on, man. We need one. We begin. Here we go. All right. Okay. Konosuke Takeshita. The great Konosuke Takeshita, who has not been able to get any television time on Dynamite recently, which is a sin. Nor was he on this show tonight. Takeshita gonna go one-on-one with who? With Mantar. It's Mantar, and you know what that means. No. That's not what it means. You don't get the Sonic Sweep tonight. You get this. That's what you get. You thought you were going to get the Sonic Sweep. You don't. Because you don't deserve it. Not tonight. You get the loser anthem. That's what you get. You and me and everybody tonight, we end up as losers with that edition of Be the Booker, which was a very demoralizing edition of Be the Booker, I must say. Hopefully we will be able to recover, come back from this. Somewhere Sonic is frowning. Yes, he is. Juan Ocampo with the $4.99. There it is on screen. Mercedes Mone is completely boring without Hunter's vision. She ain't it. AEW, and she ain't it in AEW, and will just be another woman on the roster. I am hammered. Love you.
Look at Richie Rich over here dropping all this money on me. Hey,
look at this.
I just want you to know, I think you rock.
Look at this.
I don't mean The Rock, A-Rock. You rock.
Hell yeah, man.
And I just wanted you to know that.
Hell yeah, man. Boots just dropped a $100 bomb, which gets a yes chant. Bryan Danielson got yes chants tonight in Wembley Stadium. 53,000 people chanting yes. Boots gets a yes chant of his own. No message. Just showing love, man. The $100 bomb. That's the big bomb of the night, too. So, Boots, thank you, man. Thank you very much. And Ross Lawman, please still come to the UK. Noah the Mark will be your diesel, as we know he can take a chop to the chest. Keep up the great work, Jersey boy. Yeah, man, he took a wicked chop from the late Brian Christopher at WrestleMania weekend one year. I don't remember. Maybe it was Orlando. I think it was 2017. We were at some bar. Grandmaster Sexay came in and I got it all on film. All I know is that Noah ended up with his shirt off, and he took a chop. And I didn't. I just watched. And it was fun. Power Spine Games, thank you for the super chat. That Be the Booker was an all-in card from another universe. Yeah, from like an alternate dimension. Oh, man. Well, we've reached the end of our journey here. And I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me for 2.5 hours on a Sunday evening, a rare Sunday evening stream. I'm going to try to have dinner now because I haven't eaten anything since lunch. I'm hungry. After I saw our friend Ruben in the chat before, it got me even hungrier. Hit that like button on your way out. That will help the video get into the recommended so more people will watch it. And then they can hit the subscribe button when they come. Check out episode 876 of the podcast. It's a 2-hour show. The 25 best segments, matches, and moments in SmackDown history. My list. Because Monday is the 25-year anniversary since SmackDown became a weekly series. People love it when I do lists. I haven't done one in a while. There you go. It's an hour long. It's on the show. Go check it out. The next time I'm live with you here on the channel will be, well, I guess tomorrow night, right? Tomorrow's Monday. So tomorrow night, I'm going to be right back here with you for the Monday Night Raw post show. So until then, be well, stay safe, have yourselves a great night. It's nice to not end the fucking wee hours of the morning here. And I'll see you back here for the Raw recap tomorrow night on YouTube. Take care, guys.